Welcome to our Reclaim America Now event. It is a strategic event to educate people on the root causes of why public education has so many problems, how this has affected all Americans, not just our schools, and what we can do to fix it. We aim to take education back to what education was in the beginning, a basic, rigorous education where teachers and students enjoy school and parents partner with their child's education. I've been a teacher for over 26 years and have worked in education reform for much of this time. I never could have imagined that the COVID lockdowns would put such a spotlight on education and that God would use this to expose and begin to reform education. We still have much work to do, and you will hear from many experts in what we're doing to save Americans, especially our children. I'm so grateful to Rebecca Friedrichs, who's become one of my mentors. I saw Rebecca at the Republican National Convention in 2020, where President Trump had her speak first, knowing her message was pivotal about the teachers' unions not only ruining education, but our country. I knew I found a kindred spirit and prayed that I could meet her. 2 years later, my prayer was answered at a screening of her movie, Whose Children Are They? She has been a fearless advocate for teachers like me who stand up to the unions, transforming education and saving our children in the process. We will also learn about the importance of bodily autonomy, which is how most of us were brought together. In 2021, many LAUSD employees, including myself, refused the COVID vaccine, which was a condition of employment for our employer, the second largest school district in the country, Los Angeles Unified School District. Vanessa, Vance, and Sonny Lloyd co-founded California Educators for Medical Freedom to fight against this mandate. Vanessa and Lesley Manookian, founder of Health Freedom Defense Fund, recruited me to be one of 7 plaintiffs, along with Sonny in the original lawsuit against LAUSD. It has been a difficult journey of persecution and watching over 1,000 of our colleagues lose their jobs. But God has and is working it out for good. I never could have imagined that fighting this unlawful mandate would lead eventually to eradicating the children's vaccine mandates that have irreparably harmed our children. Speaking out against tyranny has blessed me beyond belief, not the opposite as many think. I believe many of us can agree. Remember, the Constitution says, "We the people." Above all, prayer has made the biggest difference, and many of us have prayed continually, even doing prayer walks and pouring communion around pivotal places. The Gathering Place has prayed for our case from the beginning. Thank you for your prayers and for hosting us. As we work and pray together, we will make America great again. Many of us would never have been brought together without this case. It has strengthened us, and you will hear later from Lesley updates about our case and the victories we have had to make bodily autonomy for all Americans. Today, we are talking about our fight for freedom for our bodies, health, and our future, our children. Thank you for coming and your support. I want to especially thank our amazing speakers and volunteers. We could not have done this without you. We have several speakers and stakeholders who've come from all over the country. Please go to our website, reclaimeducationnow.com, for the information that we will be presenting throughout the night. Our event is being live streamed on our website to share with others on your social media pages and elsewhere. Use the QR link on the flyer on our website to make donations to our lawsuit. All proceeds will go to support the Health Freedom Defense Fund California Educators for Medical Freedom lawsuit. There is information about our lawsuit on our website as well. Please be generous. We need to raise several $1,000s for our next lawsuit. I know we have some big donors here to make large donations. There is also a place on our website to donate to our nonprofit, Reclaim Education Now, so we can continue doing what we do. You can find more information in the About section on our website to learn about what we're doing to make education great again. Please follow us on social media for updates. I'm currently writing a book, which will be announced on our social media pages soon. There is a list of our speakers and their organizations on our flyer. Please look up their websites, social media, and follow them. Because of time constraints, we can only share a brief snapshot of what each does. They are national leaders who are all amazing. You can donate cash throughout the event in the foyer or see our website for the donation link. There is also information about how to opt out of the teachers' unions and more. Visit our website at reclaimeducationnow.com or use the QR code on the flyer or on the screen. It'll be presented throughout the event. Also, please buy raffle tickets in the foyer by 5 o'clock. They are $1 each or 15 tickets for $10. We have 15 great prizes, including CAEMF merchandise and Patriot gifts. They're amazing. You can choose your gift, and the contents are written on the back of each bag. All proceeds will go to our lawsuit. There is also a merch table in the foyer, and you can buy snacks and water, but food is prohibited in the sanctuary. Please visit the speakers' booths after the event from 5 to 7 here in the alcove, and this is where our raffle prizes are also located, or in the foyer, to meet our speakers and gather more information as well. Thank you for your generosity, and together we will make America and education great again. Thank you. Now please welcome Pastor Wright, pastor of the Gathering Place, to welcome us to his church.
How many of you saw the Sound of Freedom? Well, I want to help define who you are. It's not that you don't already know this, but Ephesians talks about the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who's now working in those who are disobedient. You're attacking that thing, just like they did in that movie, went after and got that one girl. But all of you are like Gideon's army. You're going after the strong man to destroy their works, to liberate children. That's who you are. We've been praying since the days of Barack Obama. I've been praying in my prayer groups that I lead that nothing that's hidden will not be exposed. What they have said in secret will be shouted on the housetops. And recently, I believe the Lord is actually performing this verse. And it's Isaiah 59:19. Now, it's in different translations, but the way it's supposed to actually say it is, when the enemy comes in, comma, like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against it. That's who you are. You're coming in. You're all part of the flood of righteousness coming across our nation. So you need to know that. You already know that. But at least I'm going to pray that that happens to you more than ever before. You're at the right place at the right time. God is hearing your prayers. And the parents are hearing your prayers. And we're watching you. So Lord, I pray today for these people here, every one of them. I pray thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as you've ordained it in heaven. They are your workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which you have before ordained for them to fulfill. I pray, Lord, every person here today will fulfill the ordained works of advancing the kingdom of God in the area of this thing called education. Lord, we thank you that you are invading it, Lord. You are coming like a flood, Lord, through our president. Lord, you're coming through a flood like an answer to our prayers, but you're coming through like a flood through these men and women here today. I praise you for blessing them, strengthening them, and the gates of hell will not prevail against them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor Rick. I would now like to welcome Dran Reese, Public School Exit.
And I do have my own timer. Let's see how this works. Okay, well, thank you so much, Heather. Appreciate you putting this together. Pastor Rick as well for opening your church, and Dave for my PowerPoint. You can go to the next slide, or the first slide. Yes, and skip that. I'm going to just show you a couple of pictures. We homeschooled, and this is our sports activities that we did. This one is Civil War Co-op Day. Next. This one I love. This is our office in our school. This is our school in our office, and my daughter Marley there. You see that checkbook? We gave our kids a checkbook early in life, and she's now working on Wall Street as a hedge fund manager. It works. I know. Next slide. Okay, I wanted to talk about, to start off with, what is happening with our state legislature. Well, let me put this here. Okay, a legislator's job, this is something we have to really pay attention to, is what are our lawmakers doing? They make up laws here in California, and we have a super majority of Democrats. And each year they introduce 2,300 bills, of which you're not going to get a chance or an opportunity to know because they make it difficult. Next slide. Okay, this is the makeup of our legislature. We have 90 Democrats, 27 Republicans, so we're at a deficit of 63 Democrats. So if you don't like what's going on with the fires, the high gas prices, the cost of living, lack of water, who are you going to blame? Next slide. And these are some of the bills that they've introduced that are affecting your children in school. They're teaching comprehensive sex education, which is pornography. They're forcing teachers to promote homosexuality. They're requiring K through 12 books to promote homosexual men. And on it goes, pronoun uses. Even if a child wanted to get out of same-sex attraction, it's illegal in this state. How is that possible? They made it illegal. They're doing whatever they want to us. They're flat evil. And you know that they have two constitutional amendments have now been passed by them just voting it in. The will of the people, we have to get 750,000 signatures if we want to get something on the ballot. All they have to do is pass it. So now abortion and homosexual marriage is enshrined in the state constitution. Next slide. Which is why you need to vote. And I have over here at my table this business card. Use biblicalvoter.com. It is amazing. We have all the websites that you're ever going to need, and that little booklet right there tells you the differences between the Democrat and Republican Party from a constitutional and biblical standpoint. Folks, we're standing before God in this church. We got to get it together. Are we going to stand in the way of the sinner, walk in the way of the wicked? That's what we're doing when we vote incorrectly, so vote right. Next slide. Here's a warning. I love to put this on the front of every school. Your kids will be exposed to gender dysphoria, transgenderism, mental health screening, bullying, hormone replacements, vaccines, drugs, sex, hostility to God, Marxism, socialism, suicide, gangs, data mining, brainwashing, globalism, a welfare education, and indoctrination. At your own risk, your child enters this public school. Sign me up. Sign me up for that school. Next slide. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the National Education Association, and I want to give you a little bit of history because this is where I find it gets really interesting. In the 1600s, our founders had a perfect system of education. They were homeschooling or they had church one-room schoolhouses. In the 1700s, Robert Owen came in, and he brought socialism to America, the German-Prussian model. And here's how it worked. We used to be a society that put our faith in God. That was a theological society. But what he did is he came in and he introduced at the time a fake psychology. And it was known as fake because it was bringing you internally where you start studying your own mind and you don't need God. So that was back in the 1700s, and it got worse from there with Horace Mann, who started the NEA and centralized all this education, and then bribed churches with money, government money, to get involved with their centralized program. Then after that, we have John Dewey, not the Dewey Decimal System, but he was another socialist who said something so important. Literacy is an obstacle to socialism. So what did he do? He got rid of all the phonics that we learned about in the public school, and he brought in the look-say method, where if you look up at that word, let's say Trojan, you look at it, and you try to memorize it, Trojan, but you don't sound any of the symbols out. So after a while, you can't read, and that was the reason why we have an increase in dyslexia in this country. Anyway, these guys are bad. And the NEA, to top it all off, is the largest funder of the Democrat Party. What are we doing here? We got 319,000 teachers that are paying union dues and destroying our kids and creating chaos. And then you have the dismal statistics of California being 43rd in the rankings. And only 84% graduate, and of the ones that graduate, 50% of them can't even read. A third of them have no ability to do math. It's insane. Next slide. And then teachers are forced to read this book that's dedicated to Lucifer. And what does it teach them? How to break down society through using chaos. Next slide. And if our system was so great, how come we have so many of these books now telling us it's unredeemable, public schools are gone, end of education, race to the bottom, crime of the educators. Next slide. And then, of course, our libraries and schools are putting cartoon pornography, and we have drag queens, and I don't get it, but it's sick. Next slide. And then kindergarten. Now, kindergarten is that German word for children in the garden. Here we go again. We're using this terminology, the socialist terminology, and now they're teaching yoga, our kids how to meditate, which is letting the serpent crawl up the back of your spine. That's what yoga is when you start to meditate. Next slide. I have one of these books available at my table over here, but this is happening in the public schools. Do not deny it. Do not deny it. They're rearranging the minds of our children. Next slide. Okay, very briefly, thank God Donald Trump said there are two genders, hallelujah, male and female, and his executive order, no more men and girls sports. But that is not a law. They can change it tomorrow. And all of this stuff is still happening in the public schools. And they now have been hiring transgenders and gays to teach our kids. Layla Jane, she got a sex surgery at 13 after a 75-minute evaluation. This is a breach of standard of care for our hospitals. It's intentional fraud and concealment. And then you got to think about COVID, jabbing our little kids with all these experimental drugs. What the heck? What are we doing here? Chloe Cole, double mastectomy at 15, puberty blockers, and the only reason she had that done is because the school told her that she would commit suicide if she didn't have it done. They're lying to the parents. That wasn't true at all. Next slide. And by the way, children, just watch this. Yeah.
As we celebrate Pride and the progress we've made over these past years, there's still work to be done. So to those of you out there who are still working against equal rights, we have a message for you. You think we're sinful? You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Happy.
All right, I'd love for you to listen to the whole thing, but that's enough. They're after your kids, guaranteed. Next slide. We're going to do facts and stats now. Homeschooling gives you control over what your kids are learning. I'm not going to read all this. Anybody can have my slide presentation. But this is amazing, folks. I'm about to tell you the good news here. Next slide. Yes, good. Homeschooling builds virtue, not just knowledge, and that's what we want as Christians. Next slide. You get to tailor the learning experience to your family. When we homeschooled, we got to take vacations all the time, pretty much, because we had all their school books. We could go anywhere, do anything. We had the best time. It was the best time of my life. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Next slide. Okay, in government schools, we're paying property tax for them to do this to our kids. That has to stop. We've got 85% of the children that come out of these public schools are opposed to God. 1 in 4 children aged 12 to 17 are now considered non-gender conforming. Kids have an imagination, and when they're little, they imagine themselves princes and princesses and superheroes. But what are we doing to them? We're exposing them to sex ed so quickly it snaps their mind. They don't know what to do, and so therefore they become confused and they lose their ability to think. It is actually damaging a kid's brain to put this social emotional learning on them. Half the students no longer read at grade level. We did that one. Here's another one. They're actively recruited by gay lesbians, but did you know that the CDC requires 75 vaccinations from every child before the age of 17? And we wonder why there's such an epidemic of asthma, autism, brain disorders, and so many other things, and they're dropping dead, certainly with the COVID vaccination. Next slide. Homeschooling stats. Yeah, this is where it gets really good. There are 4 million children that have been saved. Thank you, Jesus. They're out. 9 million were exposed during the COVID. They outperform better, up to 25% in standard classes at school, 42% better on the standardized tests, 78% are better on academic achievement. And they're actively recruited by college. And we save about $56 billion a year when they do that. Next slide. So it's really, really simple. 3 things you need to know. You pick an option, you pick a method, you pick a style. I picked home base, I picked hybrid for the method, and I picked for the style road schooling. So we got an RV, we put our kids in the car, took the school books with us, and we went on mini vacations. It was a blast. Next slide. Well, this is how you do it, and we're just going to blast through these. If you're home-based and you're independent, you have to just fill out one form from the state and go out and get the books, $350. But don't forget the teacher's answer book. You're going to sound like a smarty pants with your kids, and you get to relearn everything that you forgot about when you were a kid. Next slide. Then you could do a co-op, which is exactly the same thing as it was before, but you cooperate with other parents and have fun with their kids and with the mom. Next slide. This is the hybrid model, which we did. So we keyed our kids into a local Christian school. And they gave us, we went 2 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and then we had all the books, and they assigned them to us before I learned about the fact that we can actually buy the curriculum from a lot of vendors. Now I say you don't even need to do that. Next slide. Oh, and what's the cost of that last one? That's just about $200, maybe $300 a month. So you're looking at $300, $350 a year for only books as a homeschool mom, or $200 or $300 a month if you key into another organization. On this one, online is about $350. We have the best in the world. Use our website, publicschoolexit.com, best in the world. Next, you can hire a teacher. California has some of the best homeschool laws in the state. We don't want to let anybody know about that. But you can hire a teacher if you want. I'd take Rebecca any day. Heather any day. Next slide. I don't have a chance. Oh, and then enrichment programs. Look at all the fun you can have, especially what we did with our kids. They got to learn everything. Next slide. This is our team of experts. It's part of our advisory team and our board. Some of the top of the line, and they're sitting here in this room right now. Next slide. Our homepage is very easy to navigate, so please go look at it, and you'll see everything you need to know to get started. Next slide. We do consultations on a frequent basis, free. Happy to help anybody. We've helped thousands of people, churches, and individuals. Next slide. And I would like to tell you about it, but I'm going to try to get my time done. But right here, this is a true story, but I'm only going to tell you that reading begins when your child starts to talk. What are we doing waiting until they're 5 or 6 years old before we start teaching reading? We've got to start when they say, Dad, Mom. Show them what Dad and Mom looks like. Ball, ball. Show them what that looks like and help them to start writing. Next slide. There are a lot of parents, these parents right here, they took 2 jobs. One works at night, one works during the day. They only have a few hours together, but they are homeschooling. Single women are homeschooling. There are so many different ways to do this. There's no excuse not to take your kids out of public school. Next slide. And again, if you think this is not in your school, it is. Next slide. We have different courses that we offer along the school year, so if you sign up with us, then we'll let you know about those courses. Next slide. We also do a certificate training program for teachers, pastors, and homeschool moms, and you can actually get a certificate in this. Isn't that exciting? And you could actually become an entrepreneur. One mom, one or 2 kids of your own, and then you bring in a few other families. You can make some serious money doing this. You don't need to be stuck in an environment if you're a school teacher. By the way, not all school teachers are bad. Trust me, they're beautiful teachers, and many of them want out of this labyrinth that they're stuck in. And this is a way that you can make money, and we'll be happy to help you learn how to do that. Next slide. We help churches set up schools. Just give us a call if you'd like to have us put together one of those evenings. Next slide. We have the newsletter and a free downloadable how-to guide. I do have the guide over here if you want to purchase a copy of it. But this will show you 5 ways to get out of the public schools and to start taking care of your own family. Next slide. Also, I challenge all of you to go on there and take this biblical worldview test. You really want to know where you stand on the issues of God as it relates to politics, religion, economics, etc. If you can do that, and by the way, we don't see your results, you can just go on there, take the test, then you're going to know where your gap areas are as a parent or even as pastors. We have a lot of pastors that don't really have a full biblical worldview, and it's kind of frightening, actually. So we now know that only 12% of the youth pastors have a biblical worldview. So anyway, take the test. It's on our website. Next slide. And then Alex Newman, who is our executive director, has just written a book, Indoctrinating Our Children to Death, also available. Excellent read. Last slide. Thank you very much, and we can always use any financial support and help to do all that we're doing, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be here, and thank you so much.
That flame within us, the desire for the pursuit of more. The steps we take forward, the drive behind this is no accident. There is no coincidence. There is a divine master plan, a calling like a thumbprint that resonates through the corridors of time. We are mosaics, shaped by our experiences, emotions, and dreams, forming his masterpiece. Every small part of us matters, contributing to the beauty of who we are. These passions we pursue are not random. They are significant threads woven into a grand tapestry. Every word we speak, every note we play, every action we take carries meaning and contributes to a master plan. As we embrace our calling, we become catalysts for transformation, bringing life and hope to desolate places. Let us remember and embrace our true identity as God's treasured masterpiece. We empower future generations to embrace their own identity and calling. Through him, we can ignite the fire within us and inspire those around us. And just as the waters fill the sea, our mission is to spread and saturate the earth with the knowledge and glory of God. We are a movement. We are his masterpiece. We are Equip 210.
Please welcome Lesley Russell, Equip 210.
Hey, you guys. So I'm the bearer of good news. And when you look at that video, what do you experience when you see that? Isn't that just like evoke freedom, right? Those are our students, and those are our alumni. And I love what I get to do. And we launch K-12 schools across the country that are bibliocentric, focused on identity in Jesus Christ. So I'm a teacher at heart. That's how I got started. So if you got your little prop today, take it out. This is Amazon's finest. This is 400 UV, so you can put it on. And this is the new lens of education that the Lord has just downloaded. So about a year ago, I woke up, and the Lord just started downloading all these things to me, these words that he wanted me to do a deep dive in. So I woke up one morning, and he's like, there's no more gray. And I'm like, there's no more gray. And he goes, research, get into like humanism and secularism. I'm like, well, I already know what they mean. He goes, go deeper. And so I just started Googling things and ChatGPT and pulling things back. And then lo and behold, the father of education, oh my goodness, John Dewey himself. His name, the first name on the first humanistic manifesto in the United States, John Dewey. So it's really amazing when you look at like where we've been and where we're going. And so I just started praying. I'm like, Lord, I want to see your heart. What is your heart for education? How do you want to have education done? And it is amazing the revelation that he started giving me. And so I started writing a book, and he gave me things like Matthew 19:14. He said, do not forbid the little children to come to me. And Romans 1:20 is that man is without excuse, that the evidence of God is all over creation and his mysteries. The mysteries of him, the deep mysteries of him are within creation. And so I remember waking up this one morning, and it was just this whole download of things like it's not a Greek mindset, it's a Hebraic mindset. And we need to relevate and not educate. And that if you want to have a different outcome, you need to do things differently. And you can't mix old wine in new wineskins. And so all of a sudden, the big like epiphany, the moment, okay, I remember it so clearly. It was like the sun was rising. It was around like 5:30 or so, 6 a.m. And I was just sitting there with the Lord, and he gave me this word that is an obsolete word now. The last time it was used was in the 1500s by Martin Luther, and the word is to relevate. And it's obsolete now, but it means to reveal God, and that really the purpose of education, here we go, put the glasses on. Ready? Drum roll. Ready? Math, science, English, history are not about math, science, English, history. Math, science, English, history are really about the revelation of God. The greatest algorithms haven't even been discovered yet. And the greatest mysteries are still out in creation, but creation's been hijacked by humanism. And so that there are frequencies that we haven't even discovered yet that are going to bring healing. There are things that we're going to learn when we bring God into the center of it all, and he truly is the center of education. It's going to be amazing what we're going to see. And so I started thinking about goals and what truly is the goal of education when a child walks across the stage to get their diploma. Is it we've won, we've got it, they have better ACT, SAT scores. The math scores are higher than across the sea with the countries over there in Europe or in Asia, or the reading levels are finally higher. Is that when we're going to be wow, we finally have improved our educational system? But know that 7 out of 10 graduating high schoolers, 70 out of 100 graduating high schoolers, 70 to 90% leave their Christian faith when they graduate. 25%, 1 out of 4, have a same-sex relationship. And so I just want us to look at this opportunity that is coming because we have a new administration. And I can tell you that we are going to get to see one of the most dramatic shifts in education with the dismantling, and I love that word, dismantling, of the Department of Education. Of what's coming next week when our president announces all the changes, all the executive orders and beyond and everything else in education, is that we're going to have an opportunity to bring Jesus Christ into the center of education. And that is the only way, because without him, things get perverted, and without things just do not go well. And so he needs to be in the center of it. And we're going to be able to have the funding to do that, too. It has to be the right funding. It has to be done the right way, and we're going to get to hear from Kevin about that. But we are going to have an opportunity to be able to bring him into it. We're already seeing the Bible coming back into education. So what do? We train teachers nationally, even globally. I'm on calls weekly with Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, India, Brazil, pretty much every continent. And you know what? He is dropping the same download with them as well. That is about him being in the center of education. And so I was waiting for the music to play, and it didn't start playing, so I just kept talking. But just to wind down here, this is my booth over here. We train teachers nationally and globally how to do a bibliocentric, Christ-centered pedagogy and methodology, and you can launch your own school, or you can be trained in bringing that into your community. So thank you so much, and our high school is alive online. You can access it anywhere. Thank you, Heather, and thank you so much, Pastor of the Gathering, and God bless America. Oh, and I get the honor of inviting Kevin McNamee, who is the force behind the Children's Educational Opportunity Act, to come on up, and we really need to pay close attention to all that he's going to be sharing. So thank you, Kevin, for being here today.
Thank you, Lesley. That was very kind of you, kind introduction. Pastor, again, thank you for having us. My name's Kevin McNamee, and I am the former mayor of the city of Thousand Oaks. And yes, I ran for re-election this last November. In October, I said to my wife, I don't think I'm meant to get reelected. She says, why? And I said, because I think this would open up a lot more time to work on something that I think will be transformative for all of California in our future. It's called the Children's Educational Opportunity Act. Let me share with you a little bit about it. 35 years ago, the public schools said to the California voter, we will do better in education if we had more money. So the California voters said, we understand. And we voted for something called Proposition 98 that forced the state government to allocate 39% of its state's revenue to kindergarten through 12th grade education. If you divide that among all the public school students, it is $23,000 per year. Average class size is 30. That's $690,000 per classroom to run that school, run that classroom. Now, we pay our teachers on average $92,000. My question as a businessman, where's the other $598,000 going? Not to teachers, not to tutors, learning aids, curriculum. It's going to staff, administrators, and things outside of the classroom. I don't see this changing anytime soon. So there's an initiative I'm bringing forward for 2026. I need all of your help, and I'll explain in just a second. I'm going to do something that most speakers never tell you to do. I want you to get out your smartphone right now, put it aside, because at the end of my presentation, I'm going to ask you to do an exercise with me that will help spread the word. Go ahead, take it out. You don't have to participate if you don't want to. You're not going to get penalized. Now, let's talk about that 23,000 spread among public school students. If you did it from all students in California, regardless of where they go, that winds up being $17,000 per child in California, kindergarten through 12th grade. Could you go to the next slide for me, please? Follow the numbers. Actually, it should be on the next one. There we go. Actually, if you can go back, and then it'll pop through. So if you could do the tab. There you go. Go to the next one. Yep, I guess it all comes up. Usually it slides in, but that's okay. All right, $17,000 per kid if you divide it among all K through 12 educated students, okay? Now, I'm going to give you an example how this works. Let's say the parents are not happy with their local public school because it's not a good fit for their child. What the CEO Act does, it opens up all 5 options, just like the options for wealthy families. Public school, charter school, but also faith-based school, private school, and homeschool. Parents open up an education savings account at the state level. $17,000 gets put in there. Now the parent's job is to find the best education fit for that child. So let's say the parents enroll that child into a kindergarten in the neighborhood. That's a private school. And let's say that private school charges $7,000 per year. The school notifies the state education savings account trustees, I've got this child here, we charge $7,000. They release $7,000 from the state ESA to the school. But here's where the magic begins. That leaves $10,000 sitting in that account, earning interest for future education expenses. This is not a voucher where if you don't use it, you lose it. There's a reward at the end for finding the best education fit at the lowest price. So let's say this progresses for the next 12, 13 years, kindergarten through 12th grade. At the end of 12th grade, you will have over $130,000 sitting in that account for that child to use for trade tech, community college, university, post-grad, for the rest of the kid's life. Gets even better. After 18 years of age, that student can transfer some or all of that ESA money to a family member's ESA. So let's say the older brother is a plumber, has $50,000 left in that account, and says, I'm never going to go back to school, I'm done. But the younger sister is going off to medical school for $200,000. The brother can transfer it over to the sister's ESA account to use for education expenses. It allows low-income and moderate-income families to have the same options as the wealthy families who have 529 plans. Best part, this does not raise taxes, and it's tax-free money. It puts the parents in charge of their child's education. Now, here's where the exercise begins. I want to launch this so we get it done for November of 26. On our website, I need your information, name, email, phone number, to commit to sign the initiative, so when we launch, we can email you the initiative, print it out, sign it, and mail it back. First things first, though. All the things I just said about the 5 steps with this program, it's kind of hard to remember, so I made it easy for you. I want you to call this phone number right here. We will text you a YouTube link. That would be the next slide. Do it again. Hit the button. No, it's not moving. Oh, it decided to freeze. Okay, we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. So you're going to get, call this number, 323, go ahead and do it right now, 323-417-4644, 417-4644. You are now going to get a voicemail saying, "Thank you for calling the Children's Educational Opportunity Act. We have now sent a text link to you with a YouTube video that tells you more about the act. Go to your text messaging and learn more." So then you open up your text messages, you click on the YouTube link, gives you a 4-minute video. I hear some of it playing. This is good. What you do is you can share that with others. Copy the link, email it, text it to somebody else. Show it to your friend, your neighbor. But here's what I need you to do. You ask them right then and there to call it as well. Next, you would go to the following, and you can do this on your smartphone. Go to this website, educationopportunity.org. Go to that right now. It'll take you to the landing page where I'm going to ask you for your name, email, and phone number. I want 1 million people before we launch signature gathering. I need to get 874,000 valid voter signatures to get it on the ballot for November of 2026. This is a game changer. We could talk about changing school boards, re-electing assembly members and state senators, getting rid of the governor. This takes the power away from the school boards. This puts it back into the power of the local community. You, the parent, are now in charge. The CEO Act allows every child in California to have equal access to a quality education, regardless of race, family income, or zip code. And with that, I'm going to ask all of you, if anyone's interested, I will be passing out some cards while the next speaker is here. If you're interested in being part of the communications team, please reach out to me while I'm here. I'd like to share with you some ideas, meet with you in a team, so that way we can reach out and spread the word. My name's Kevin McNamee. I'll be available. I'll be passing out some cards. It's an absolute pleasure talking to you. Good things are ahead. Thank you, Heather.
Hi, I'm here with Rebecca Friedrichs for Kids and Country here at America Fest. And Rebecca is one of my amazing mentors, and she took out the teachers' unions in the Supreme Court so that it's not mandatory to have to pay union dues. And I just wanted to ask Rebecca that about the Department of Education. Trump says that he wants to take out the Department of Education, so I wanted to ask you what you thought about that.
Yeah, I'm thrilled about it. So I know that there are some people who think, oh, you can't take out the Department of Education. What about the kids? What about special needs? Look, our founders never wanted the federal government to be involved in our schools at all. And the reason the Department of Ed exists is because the so-called teacher unions put pressure on, and they asked for a Department of Ed, and they supported Jimmy Carter in his run for president. When he won, his thank you gift to the unions, not to us, not to we the people, his thank you gift to the unions was the Federal Department of Ed with a cabinet position. So ever since that Department of Ed was started, our scores have plummeted, our kids have been more and more abused, parents have lost more and more rights in the schools. Look, it used to be parents who sat down and made decisions in the district who you're going to hire, how much people are going to make, because it was the community that was funding it. Now, unions are in charge of everything, and a very corrupt government. So I'm extremely excited. I hope he's able to do it. It's the first thing we need to check off in our schools. Then I'm hoping we can make government unions illegal.
Amen.
Again, that would be my prayer.
Yes, and then come to our event. We're having another education reform event February 8th, and reclaimeducationnow.com. And we have a lot of people that are coming, like Rebecca, who are going to speak about how to save our children. Thank you so much.
2.
Okay, so I just want to remind you guys again to please donate. There is a QR code there, or you can go to reclaimeducationnow.com, and you're going to hit that blue button, and that'll take you to the HFDF website for our lawsuit for the COVID vaccine, which Lesley will be talking about in a few minutes. And there's also a link there for more information about our case. Also, make sure you buy the raffle tickets. Are $1 each or 15 for $10. That will be cut off at the end of the night, right before we do our raffles. So make sure you get those raffle tickets. We have a lot of great patriotic gifts, and also our merchandise for our lawsuit. So right now, I want to introduce one of my amazing mentors, Rebecca Friedrichs for Kids and Country. Can you guys welcome Rebecca?
Hey, Drummy Dave. Let's start with a video.
We heard these heartbreaking stories from around the state of kids falling behind. We all knew this was going to happen, but the reality is the National Teachers Union is more concerned with politics, they're more concerned with power than they are our kids.
99.99% of teachers union donations go to Democrats, and they regularly advocate for policies that have absolutely nothing to do with education. From things like abortion on demand to Medicare for all, things like supporting Palestine, things that have nothing to do with educating our children.
Well, unfortunately, I think the only way to read it as the union trying to politicize the pandemic.
The union said it would not bless school reopening until they defunded the police.
We've seen the devastating effect that lockdowns and school shutdowns have had on our kids' education. And I can't help but reach the conclusion that we have teachers unions who are holding our kids hostage.
It's not just academic loss. Mental health problems are also on the rise.
This disproportionately hurt disadvantaged students. So the same people, equity warriors who have been screaming DEI from the rooftops for 2 years, are the same ones that have disproportionately hurt those students.
In the name of sexuality education, children are seeing obscene materials.
I've seen some of the lesson plans that are in play here, and regardless of where you stand politically, I think some of them are quite shocking.
This is pornography. I do not approve of this. My daughter does not need to see cartoon pornography.
I have people who are on drugs, and she 5 times was fired, and I got her job back 5 times. Listen, if you hit the kid, you hit the kid. It is what it is. You go to the Hamilton Board of Education and report this, they're gonna call the police, and they're gonna call parents and all that. We don't do that. We don't do that here. I'm here to defend even the worst people.
There is absolutely a climate of hostility if you speak up against the union.
I was accused of not being fit for teaching. I was accused of hurting a student. I was accused of not being a quality leader, all because I was opposed to being forced to be a union member.
You're ostracized, you could lose friends who are colleagues.
No government employee, including teachers, has to fund a union anymore. But most of them have no idea. That's all right. Thank you. Thanks, Dave. I'm here to talk about the root. So I just showed you a quick video. If you liked it, I'll give you a QR code at the end and you can access it. The root cause of our problems in America and our public schools is Satan, to get to the bottom of it. But who is he using? He's using an organization that calls itself a teacher union, along with other organizations. But the teacher unions are the ones that got into our schools and created a stronghold. Dran gave you a really good background, especially with NEA Trojan Horse. Great book, recommend it highly. But the teacher unions were able to get into our schools. They started in the 1850s. They were able to really get in the early 1900s. They completely took over in the 1960s. And everything you see now is thanks to the so-called teacher unions. So my favorite quote by Henry David Thoreau, a writer we used to study before the unions showed up. There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root. Why do I love this quote? Because so many times we're just hitting branches up here of evil, and more branches grow, and more branches grow, and we can't keep up. Every day there's a new fight on our hands, right? It's like it's never ending. The only way we're going to stop this constant growth of poisonous branches is to dig out the poisonous root. So what's the root? It's the so-called teacher unions. I mentioned in the video that most teachers have no idea they no longer have to fund a union as a condition of employment. I had to fund them my whole career. as did my husband. They now have to pay zero, not 1 penny, to a union. At the end, because I'm a teacher, I'm going to give you homework. And that homework, so start thinking about it, is going to be to find a teacher that you can help us liberate from these unions. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history on how this all happened and how the root works. So next slide. All right. We have to raise our voices against the root cause of our problems. I just talked to you about the root. We have to understand who's behind this harm to our kids and country. Who is it? Next slide. So I told you it's the teacher unions, but who are they? They claim they are teachers. They claim they are a union in the traditional sense. Are they who they claim to be? Let's take a look. Our founders told us something. There's only one way we can keep our free republic. We have to have a well-educated, moral citizenry that can self-govern. Well-educated, moral, so you can self-govern. Next slide. If you want to destroy a free republic like America, you first have to destroy the education. People can't be well-educated anymore. They have to be so indoctrinated and propagandized that they will drive around in their car wearing a mask, trying to block out an illness. You know the whole story. Why? If they are that uneducated and then immoral on top of it, why are they sexualizing the children? To make them immoral. Why are they trying to turn them against their parents? Because God said, honor your mother and father. They're trying to undermine the family and the morality. So if they can undermine the education and the morals, they can take over. You can't self-govern anymore. All right, so let's learn a bit about who these people are. So there was a gentleman in the 1950s, W. Cleon Skousen. He worked at the FBI, and he noticed the communist infiltration into the American government. All that stuff President Trump's trying to help us weed out now, all that stuff Elon and team are discovering, well, we were noticing this in the 1950s. Americans weren't aware. This gentleman wrote a book, The Naked Communist. In it, he highlights the 45 goals of the Communist Party to undermine our free republic. I'm just going to share a few of the goals with you to help you to see who the teacher unions really are. Goal 17, get control of the schools, use them as transmission belts for socialism and communist propaganda, soften the curriculum, put the party line in the textbooks, and get control of the teacher associations. Okay, so who's controlling our teacher associations? Communists. Communists. Is that a surprise to you? Now that you see what's going on in our schools, if you have studied the history of communism at all, you know they always sexualize the children. They always undermine the family. They always destroy educational system, morals. They knock down churches. What's the number one thing a communist is afraid of? A Christian living his faith. It's the number one thing they're afraid of. Okay, let's look at a few more goals. Next slide. Check out these goals. Communist Party goals. Pushed through the so-called teacher unions. Goal number 29, discredit the Constitution. 25, break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography, even in cartoon books. 40, discredit the family as an institution, encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. And 41, emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of their parents. Do you see that going on in our public schools? All of it. That's right, all of it, and more. All you have to do, look, here's what my dad taught me. My dad grew up in poverty. His mom died when he was 3 months old. Smartest man I know, 87 years old. He told me, Rebecca, when it looks like a duck, and it waddles like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So I don't care what this teacher union calls itself. It acts like communists. It does communist behavior. It's pushing communism. It's destroying a republic. They're communists. That's who they are. Next slide. So we have to know who they are, right? We have to know who's the root, who are they, name them, and we need to attack them. We need to come against them. How did they achieve their goals? So Heather asked me to drop in a slide to help you to understand the the reason that it's so important to close the National Department of Education, because it was part of how they achieved their goals. So just a quick history. 1800s to 1930s, school funding in America, 80% from local sources, 20% from the state, 0 from the federal government. Our schools were the envy of the world. Dran told you about the background of one-room schoolhouses, and just we had the most amazing education here. Parents ran the schools. By the way, it was collective bargaining that booted the parents out. They're no longer invited. We had mandatory Bible reading, prayer, and the 10 Commandments on every wall. That was America's, quote, public school. 1867, the National Education Association, the union, the NEA, convinces President Johnson to start a National Department of Education, but it was within another department. And then in 1930s, NEA starts the removal of phonics, destroying the ability for children to read. Did you know America now has about 65 million functional illiterates in a first world country, spending trillions on education? It's not about more money, it's about getting the evil people out. It's all intentional. They're intentionally destroying our education. So in 1976, NEA endorses Jimmy Carter, first president they endorsed. He wins. His thank you gift is a National Department of Education with a cabinet position. We've been stuck with it ever since. In the 70s, Planned Parenthood entered our schools, as did hundreds of special interest groups. And so you can see why they've been destroyed. Next slide. So for nearly 200 years, our educational system was the envy of the world. When the unions gained their stronghold, mostly in the 1960s, and I just told you the stats on the functional illiterates. When I look at stats like this, and like Dran mentioned, the fact that they remove the phonics, look, there's 3,500 years of historical evidence that phonics is the only way to teach an alphabetical language like English. It's the only way. You don't learn it memorizing words. That's not reading, that's memorizing. So if you want to learn how to read, you need phonics. So when these evil people, and I'll call them evil because everything they've done is evil, when these evil people purposely remove something that's proven and cause 65 million people to be functional illiterates, and as Dran mentioned, Nation's report card came out this past week. I think it was only 31% of fourth graders are reading at proficient or above. That is by design. That is on purpose. Next slide. So I just want you to know, throwing this in really fast, I don't have a lot of time today, but if you're in the PTA, please get out. I was the PTA teacher rep. Look, I stand with you that, I got duped. The PTA has been corrupt since the 1960s. I have a whole chapter on it in my book. I'm selling my book out in the lobby. My husband's out there if you want to read about it. The basics are the unions bullied them into a stance of neutrality. The PTA has not been standing for parents ever since. Sadly, because parents think they are and gladly hand over their money, that all goes up to the same political. Well, let me just tell you, I don't have a lot of time, but I was at the State House, California State House one year, testifying against the radical sex ed, and there were hundreds of us filling the room. Thousands of people sent letters that were in big boxes. We were all against the sex ed. You know who was for it? 10 people that came in person on the other side. They were all lobbyists. They were from Planned Parenthood, the teacher unions, and the PTA. The PTA. The PTA has credibility. That's why we always use the PTA as a front. That's a union member, a union leader, former union leader. Next slide. We have to know who they are. If we don't know who they are, we're going to fall for their schemes. If we know who they are, we're not going to fall for it. We're not going to give them our money. Radical sex ed in this state, we were not the first state. We were the second to pass this radical sex ed. I call it XXX. Look at the people who supported it. The School Board Association, they're the ones that called you domestic terrorists. The teacher union and the PTA. Next slide. This is just pulled off the teacher union website, California Teacher Association. They're bragging in October 2013 that they are the ones who passed the first groundbreaking legislation allowing boys to dominate girls' sports, locker rooms, and bathrooms. And in the print we have popped out for you there, you can see at the very bottom line, California State PTA and CTA supported it. Next slide. This is just a picture of the so-called teacher unions. They're always rallying, they're always complaining, they're always full of envy. You know, I've been thinking a long time about writing an editorial series on how the teacher unions are the embodiment of living the, oh my goodness, envy, anger, greed, help me. The sins, the 7 deadly sins, the 7 deadly sins. That's them. It's the 7 deadly sins. This is what they do. You know, on teacher union dues, they have parties and they complain and go out and close main arteries with big protests to abolish ICE, to have sanctuary cities, to defund the police. So, in other words, I'm trying to help you see they're not just behind the disasters in our schools, they're behind every disaster in this country. And teachers are paying, get this, teachers alone, just educators, janitors in this country are giving these unions $5 billion with a B annually, tax-free. None of them have to pay. I mean, the unions get it tax-free. They spend all of it destroying your country and your kids, which is why we call ourselves For Kids and Country, because we're fighting for them against those who are fighting against them. Teachers don't have to pay them anymore. What if that $5 billion was instead in all those individual teachers' pockets and they donated it to something good? Maybe extra tithes to their church. Next slide. How do we most effectively raise voices and stop the harm? We have to expose these evil people. Teachers don't, believe it or not, most teachers don't know that their union is behind all this evil. They have no idea. Some of them, I kid you not, see the union as their savior. They truly do. You have to educate them. I can't reach them all. I'm shadow banned on every single platform. I'm trying, but I'm constantly blocked, constantly. I need your help, which is why I'll give you homework, to reach every teacher or government employee that you know. You know someone that works for the DMV, the VA, the CDC, the DOD? They're all unionized. Every corrupt agency we're trying to fix is unionized. So we have to dig these people out, defund them, and in my world, we'll make government unions illegal again. Maybe you can help me with that. Next slide. Since we're in California, I threw in a couple slides specific to California. So people think that big pharma is the problem. Don't get me wrong, they're a big problem. I don't have time to explain this whole slide. Basically, it was numbers that the top 15 organizations were giving to California politics, to impact politics, to put people like Gavin Newsom in office. Look at the numbers. The number one organization giving money to politics in this state is the California Teachers Association. The second one is also a union, SEIU. The third is Big Pharma. Check out the numbers I circled. The teachers' unions gave double that of Big Pharma. You think pharma's a big problem? They are. Teachers' unions are a bigger problem. Next slide. Are you a teacher in the room? Maybe you're making, the unions want everybody to think the teachers make $30,000. That's a lie. That's just to get you to pay more taxes. Teachers make a good living these days. And if you're a teacher and you can't afford what you want, it's because your union has pushed policies that have made everything so expensive. So no matter what we do, we go back to it's the union's fault. But look at these numbers. These are numbers from 2013. These are old numbers. But still, the president of NEA was making $526,000 a year. And that yes to the far right meant that he has a housing allowance. Okay, look at all those numbers. Look how much these people are making. Yeah, why? Great question. Because they're pushing communism to destroy this country. That's why. Guess who's funding them? Teachers. This is off the backs of teachers. Next slide. Just to help you connect some dots, every corrupt government agency or institution in this country is unionized by a government union, including but not limited to libraries. That's why we have drag queen events and dirty books, school boards, DMV, the VA, the National Departments of Education at every level. They all need to go. The foster care system, did you know that the highest number of children abused by sex trafficking are foster youth? That's on purpose. It's also extremely dark and evil. Extreme. The CDC, any wonder they're unionized. The DOD, next slide. FBI, I could go on all days. I already talked to you about the numbers teachers are paying. It's about $5 billion annually. Next slide. It is crazy. It's nuts. That's why, good, you're going to be good at your homework. So here's your homework. I need y'all to help liberate teachers. You know a teacher? You know any government employee who might be funding this evil, these evil unions? You need to help me get them out of the unions. They don't have to pay 1 penny anymore. They can use the money to, I don't know, buy a new car or something. When you help them, you take them to our website, forkidsandcountry.org, and there's this union exit. It's a button that says Liberate Teachers. You go under that button, you'll find union exit. It's an easy 3-step process. Step 1 is a toolkit. The teachers have been so propagandized, so lied to, they won't believe you, or they will ask you questions you can't answer. All their frequently asked questions are in that toolkit. Very easy. Step 2, we walk them through getting out of the union. Step 3, and by the way, we don't charge 1 penny. This is all free. Step 3, we direct them to alternative liability insurance. The unions have convinced teachers they're going to get sued. By you, the parents, by the way. They've divided parents and teachers in a big way. So teachers are afraid. They think they're going to be sued. The number one reason a teacher won't leave the union is because that teacher thinks he or she is going to get sued. So we direct them to alternative liability insurance. One of them's a Christian provider. The other ones are not. Same coverage. It's much better coverage than the union coverage. And it's only a couple $100 a year compared to $1,500 in union dues going to politics. Next slide. This is my book. If you want to learn more about this, I have 3 chapters on the radical sex ed, chapter on the PTA being corrupt, chapter on how our schools became dangerous. And why do we have school shootings? Why are the naughty kids in charge and the good kids and the teachers getting beat up? That's all thanks to the government unions. They wrote those policies that caused all that. So my husband's out in the lobby if you want one. Next slide. This is just if there's anybody in the room. Well, this is for anybody, but especially a government employee. If you're paying a union, but you're too afraid to not pay them, take some words from Benjamin Franklin, one of our most incredible founders. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. So if you're staying in the union because you think they're saving you from something, you don't deserve liberty or safety. You have to have a little courage, especially if you're a believer in Christ. He gives you all the courage you need. All you have to do is take it. And step away from funding a satanic agenda. Why would you fund a satanic agenda? Give it to something good. Next slide. If you liked my video at the beginning, take a picture of that QR code, and the video is on that page. We cleverly hosted on our donate page, hoping that you might stop there too. But it's there for you. It's also on our social media. And next slide, I'm going to show, I'll give them, if anybody didn't get the picture, let us know and we'll put it back up. We're on social media at TruthX, Facebook, and Instagram, at Rebecca for Kids, at Rebecca FOR. Kids, please visit us there. Like I told you, we are shadow banned, so you might not see our content come through your feed. That was the gift I received. Heather said she saw me speak at the 2020 RNC. I was immediately shadow banned everywhere. Still shadow banned on X. Trying to, I can't get a hold of a human there. It's always AI talking to me. So it's really hard and discouraging. But if you'll go to our page, we post every day. We hope you'll follow us at Rebecca for Kids. If you could go back one slide, Drummy Dave, I think there was a gal trying to get a picture of the QR code that didn't get it. And like a good teacher, I'm finishing before time. Thank you.
Three years ago, we were really looking for something that would help bring our whole district together. So I started the process to decertify and become our own union or organization here at Valley Heights.
The issue that existed at Rock Creek was that there were very few that were part of the state and national union. I think we had around 70 licensed staff at that time, and we had close to 12 that were part of KNEA, and the other ones were unaffiliated Some of the elder teachers came to me because they knew that I had been through the process at my previous school, and they wanted the option to sit at the negotiation table and negotiate for their own contract.
I started the process. I got in touch with Garry, Sigle.
My job is to facilitate the needs so that they are able to become an unaffiliated local association. It's a legal process and requires the local to submit the paperwork to the Department of Labor or whatever it is in whatever state they're in. CIE has got a wealth of knowledge all over the United States. My responsibility is to inform the leadership with the knowledge and expertise on what their options are in becoming an unaffiliated local.
I've worked with CIE through the entire decertification process, and they've been helpful from the start, middle, and end.
They're back with us very quickly with the answers that we need.
And anytime we needed legal help or questions, they've been willing to help us.
They are there to help the teacher. It's just a relief. It takes a lot off our shoulders. You know, you don't have to worry about that. You can just do your job and teach kids.
We went through the legal process. We did our official vote through the Department of Labor.
One of the reasons that we really moved to starting this process is because formerly, when we were KNEA affiliated, we had to limit who could negotiate. You could only be a negotiator for our district if you belonged to KNEA. And the cost of joining KNEA kept going up, and it was very expensive for teachers.
Brand new teachers to the profession, they have no idea that there are other organizations out there besides KNEA to get liability insurance through.
A lot of our teachers did not belong to the organization. So we were really looking for something that would help bring our whole district together.
So at Rock Creek, when I came and some of those teachers came to me and said, hey, we want to do this, the first thing I said to them is, well, we have to build a team, and we got to get teams in each building. We got those teams in place, and then they started to have those individual conversations, and before we knew it, we had a lot of people that were on board with us.
There have been around 50 decertifications in the United States in the last 15 years, and Kansas has 26 of those. It's something that's gaining steam. There's a lot more of these coming.
Now that we have made our local union, anybody has the ability to join any group that they want to and then still sit and negotiate their own contract as a team of Rock Creek educators.
We do ask for dues for our organization, but it's not required.
We do an optional one-time $30 membership fee. You don't have to do it, you can do it, no big deal. Either way, you're a part of our group.
Our probably biggest thing that we do with our money is we're offering scholarships to graduates of Valley Heights that are going into education. So we're trying to get enough money that when our students leave Valley Heights and they want to go into education, we can help them out with that a little bit.
I think the biggest reward is instead of there being, 12 to 15 teachers at that time that could negotiate for us, we then automatically went to 70 teachers we could pull from to sit down at the table with the board and negotiate. To me, that's going to give you a better possibility of getting the best people at the table. You're going to get more ideas so that you can make a better agreement with your board.
I have seen how we all come together. We are now having meetings once a year, and we're just closer. We're a big family. We support each other.
The relationship between the school board and the teachers and building admin and teachers, it's been healed and is in a much better place than it was before.
If there's a school that's looking for something, a change, something to make your school better, your teachers stronger and more supportive of each other, then this would be the way to go. CIE is there for us.
So that's the Center for Independent Employees, and Keith Williams wasn't able to be here this weekend because it's his big 50th. He was at our last event, but that is creating your own union and not having all the evil politics that Rebecca was talking about. And so we're going to have Garry Sigle come up and talk more about that and having a better way. I left the union a couple years ago, and I'm still standing. And I have better liability insurance than the union because you get $2 million per teacher rather than a group. And when push came to shove, when I actually wanted to have them fight for me, they didn't fight for me. So can you guys welcome Garry Sigle from American Educators? Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Heather, for the opportunity. My name is Garry Sigle. I am here representing the Association of American Educators, one of the two groups that Rebecca spoke about that provides legal and liability coverage to educators all over the United States. My role is I'm the executive director of the Kansas Association of American Educators, and the two people that were on that video were two that I worked with in Kansas when they changed their representation. A year ago, the national office put me at the national level for part of my role, and I've started working with districts all over the United States that want to do what these two districts have been doing. AAE is a non-union professional educators association. We're nonpartisan. We don't take anybody's money and use it to promote, fund, or endorse any political candidates. We don't take positions on social issues. We were founded here in California in 1994. Gary Beckner, our founder. In fact, I heard about this organization on a Focus on the Family broadcast. Gary Beckner, our founder, was really good friends with James Dobson, who did Focus on the Family. And James Dobson wanted Gary to come out and go to work for him, but they decided to stay in California and start AAE. So we're not a faith-based organization, but we certainly have those underpinnings of what that means. You can receive legal counsel and $2 million worth of liability coverage with us. And we continue to grow because educators, certainly in Kansas and all over the United States, appreciate the work that we do. We have a quarterly newsletter like most organizations have. That legal counsel and the $2 million worth of liability coverage is really what educators really want. We have a scholarships and grants program, a discount buying program, and professional development opportunities on our national website if you go to that. And all of that for $19.50 a month. That's $234 a year. The nice thing about us is you can join us at any time of the year, and if you get into it and you realize that maybe it's not what you want, you can always drop your membership at any time of the year too. What we want as an organization is what's best for kids. I joined AAE in 1996. I was a classroom teacher for 33 years. So I was a member of AAE for the last 15 years of my career. In 2008, I was the chairperson of the group of teachers that led a successful change of representation in our district, which is how I got involved with AAE. At the national level, Gary Beckner contacted me and supported us all the way through that with the legal aspect. A year and a half later, they hired me to be the executive director in Kansas. And in the 13 years since I've been in this position, that video said 26 have changed representation. That's up to 28 now because just this spring, we had 2 more districts in Kansas that have done that. I worked a year ago with a district in Illinois that changed representation. I'm currently working with teachers here in California, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Florida, all that are looking to do the same thing that the two districts that were on that video. If you're interested in knowing more information about what that process is like, if you would like to know more about who we are as a professional association, I'll have a booth out there at the back after this is over. You can also go to teacherfreedom.org. That will give you some information about how to get out of the union if you're wanting to do that. I made that decision back in 1996, and I certainly don't regret that I've done that. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here, and I'll be available afterwards if you'd like to talk with me.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board. I'm Jennifer Kennedy. I'm an attorney, and we've met before. When last I spoke to you, it was May of 2022, a year and a half ago, and I'll get to that in a minute. Today, I'm here to urge the long overdue sunsetting of your COVID vaccination mandate, but it doesn't go far enough. You need to reinstate all employees with full back pay. Listen, this didn't hit me, but it injured my friends. You stole livelihoods and careers from dedicated employees. You took food off the table and medical care away from children. You siphoned birthday gifts and you sucked Christmas presents up the chimney. In the name of health, you demanded that employees submit to an irreversible invasive EUA injection, a medical procedure with documented risks like blood clots, myocarditis, stroke, and death. In the name of safety, you demanded submission to this shot that never did, never could, and still does not prevent infection with or transmission of SARS-CoV-2. And the people you fired, they couldn't even get unemployment, and without medical care, they couldn't even get therapy to deal with the clinical depression you plunged them into. And by the way, so why now? Was it because of the embarrassing arguments in the Ninth Circuit that we just heard? Thank God they played that video. And the justices who said they were shocked that you were still pushing this mandate. And by the way, it's so interesting in the little report that you wrote, which counsel mentioned in those Ninth Circuit arguments, where the most scurrilous and reprehensible lie I've ever heard. And that lie is this: the district mandated but did not enforce a student vaccination requirement. How dare you? How dare you gaslight us into believing that you didn't crush students in the fall of 2021, that you didn't spend $5 million on your Safe Steps campaign of bullying, bribing, harassment, and shaming to force parents to subject their children to this experimental vaccine. How dare you say none of that happened, that you didn't kick kids off their sports, out of their clubs, out of chess, out of cheer, out of fall sports, everything that you did in October of 2021, you absolutely enforced that mandate. And funny also in the report, the fact that you say this now applies to all authorized charter schools. Funny because in May of 2022, that's what I was telling you. You needed to control your rogue charter, your LA authorized charter sitting on LAUSD property. Of course, I'm referring to Granada Hills charter, which did crush students, which did put students off campus, bar them from campus, and deny them every possible part of campus activity, including the seniors, denying them senior awards night and even their graduation. I was here in May of 22 at your fancy end of the year board retreat. I begged you to do something to stop it and save their graduation, and to a man, not a one of you did anything. Today is the day to finally do something, and that is end your stupid and cruel vaccine mandate. Thank you. Good afternoon.
So you can see why I had to show that video, because she's amazing. This is one of our lawyers, Jennifer Kennedy. She's a freedom lawyer who's fighting for compensatory damages for the teachers who've lost their jobs or lost wages. And I've spoken in front of that board. And again, you got to be bold. You got to stand up for your rights. And I just want to say one last thing. She's been displaced because of the Altadena fires. She has over $50,000 worth of smoke damage. So she needs to go back to, she's in between hotels, so she needs to leave as soon as she speaks. She came despite all of that. So can we please welcome Jennifer Kennedy?
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you guys very much. I have to say that still remains, that was in 2023, September 26th, the day that LA Unified finally voted to take down that employee mandate. And that clearly still stands as the 3 most satisfying minutes of my life, maybe to date. With the exception of births of my children, we'll make those most satisfying. I'm here to tell you about the legal landscape of where we are when we talk about reclaiming education and we talk about supporting our teachers. The way I can do it is by supporting our teachers legally who were affected by these ridiculous, stupid, and cruel vaccine mandates. And my case that I have right now is I have at least 120 of the educators, counselors, and other district employees of every kind who were put off work, who were terminated under the ridiculous district mandate, and they were put through so much injury, harm, deprivation, from lost income all the way down to displacement. And I can tell you, as now having been displaced by the fire, and luckily my home is still standing, but we've not been in it since January 7th, I can tell you how difficult it is to have to move from place to place, temporary housing, sit with friends, go to hotels, etc. It's very difficult, and yet we're super lucky, and all I think of is how difficult it must have been for those teachers who lost their jobs, lost their income, and lost their homes, lost their ability to stay in their apartment or afford their home, had to leave the state, for example. And at that time, where's the sympathy also? One of the cases I have, another case is my Washington firefighters up in Washington, obviously. That's going to be my next most exciting minutes of speaking, and that's going to be 15 minutes on April 3rd up in Portland. I'm going to be arguing in the Ninth Circuit on behalf. Yep. It's going to be, you guys, I need your prayers and your support. This is my first appeal, and it will be my first appearance in front of the Ninth Circuit, and we are going to create new law for employees in the vaccine mandate context, which is you cannot pretend that the existence of COVID and the existence of SARS-CoV-2, the virus, is the burden that a single employee must bear to protect the rest of the world. We are going to see in my argument that that's not enough, especially for religious employees in the workplace who are required to be accommodated for their religious conflict with receiving that COVID vaccination. So that's coming up, and I just want to say, off on that topic, these are the ways that we support employees as well as these teachers, is by number one, defending their rights in the workplace, making the perpetrators of these mandates accountable for what they did to damage these people. I was hoping I was going to come after Lesley Manookian because she's going to tell you about her extremely groundbreaking case that is so exciting in the legal world and what it has done to set the stage for this kind of justice. Lesley brought her case when it was seeking declaratory relief and injunctive relief. Basically, declare this mandate unconstitutional and stop it. My case, because the courts didn't cooperate, no judge was cooperating in 2021, because they didn't cooperate and they didn't stop the policy, and in fact, they dismissed cases like this. That's why it went forward and it injured so many people. That's my case. We come in on the back end and say, you're responsible for the damage. All of that preventable damage that didn't have to happen, and you did it on purpose, and you inflicted it intentionally on these innocent, hardworking employees who were no threat to anybody, and certainly no threat other than a vaccinated person whom we know can also get and transmit that same virus. So mine's for damages, but Lesley's case has set this amazing precedent that is going to really continue to help and continue to reverberate, God willing, in all the decisions to come. So I want you to know, from a legal standpoint, we are out there fighting. We are going to make new law in this area, and we're going to help support these teachers who were so damaged by LA Unified and really across this state and across our nation. I also want to say we've got other litigation going that is going to help the education community. Remember, we saw that thing about AB 1266. That was the law that was mentioned on Rebecca's slide, allowing, and we call it the Sports and Bathrooms Bill, allowing the boys into the girls' teams and sports. It's really allowing the opposite gender onto sports and bathrooms, regardless of their biological sex. That right now is being challenged in court, and that's going to fall as well. So I want you to know we've got people on every different front that are attacking these things that are really attacking our values and our way of life, and our teachers, our kids, our families, and everything we hold dear. We've got some cavalry out there on the legal side of things, so I want you to remain confident. I feel like I might have gone over my time, but thank you all for being here and for the support. And again, speaking of support, thank you for being here, number one, taking the time actually to be here and learn how you can support these efforts. And also, please support litigation. because much of it has been done pro bono. We can't all do pro bono forever. Litigation is very expensive, and it takes trained attorneys and a lot of hours. And that's another way that you can really help push these issues forward, is if you actually write a check, because you then are paying the attorney to do that work, to make sure we're taking those steps towards the goals we all really share. Thank you very much, and I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Patriots. I'm Vanessa Vance, and this is Sonny Lloyd. We are high school teachers for LA Unified School District. We are also the founders of California Educators for Medical Freedom. We are two among hundreds of LAUSD employees who declined the COVID shot. We got kicked out of school, lost our positions for not taking it. In case you didn't know, our district had one of the strictest mandates in the nation. Even though LAUSD accepted our religious exemptions, we were told that we were still defying district policy. The new policy was no unvaccinated employees were allowed on district property, period, even with an exemption. They claimed that their policy was for the health and safety of everyone on campus. When we pressured Superintendent Carvalho about how it makes sense that the employees have a mandate but the students don't, he said something to the effect of, well, we can require it for the employees but not the students because we pay you. We fought back and said, but we already have the strictest safety measures in place. Number one, every morning we have to complete the daily symptom checker, a Microsoft app called the Daily Pass, to be allowed on campus. Number two, we have to COVID test every single week during our lunch break. And number three, masks are required at all times. This is unreasonable and discriminatory that unvaccinated employees are losing their jobs. Of course, LAUSD did not budge on its policy. And clearly, this mandate was something more than about health and safety. In my opinion, it was about power, control, and money. When the mandate went into effect in October of 2021, approximately 1,000 workers, teachers, carpenters, school psychologists, principals, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, electricians, custodians, etc., lost their jobs. Luckily for me and Sonny, since we were teachers, we were transferred to work from home positions at the district's online academy. However, hundreds of teachers lost their employment completely, and some were forced to retire early because there were just no positions for them at the online academy. The suffering and loss has been tremendous. But Sonny and I were willing to lose our jobs over this. After over 20 years of service in LAUSD, as many of us were. When the previous superintendent of LAUSD was in the news during the lockdown, declaring that no one would return to campus without this vaccine, we knew that we were in a serious dilemma. No way were we going to allow ourselves to be injected with an experimental, DNA-altering big pharma product. At that time, I was a member of our union, UTLA. So I went on our union's Facebook group to try to find others with views similar to my own. And fortunately, I found Sonny, I found Heather, and many others who are here today. We decided to form a group to fight against this, and 4 years later, here we are. We're still fighting. Our group has grown into the hundreds, and we've supported countless employees through the years. By the way, our union never did anything to help us. I call them the United Traders of Los Angeles. We have multiple lawsuits in the works to make right the injustice we've suffered. Our biggest lawsuit against LAUSD is what we call the HFDF, or Health Freedom Defense Fund lawsuit. It's huge. Our main argument is that this COVID shot was not a vaccine because it didn't stop infection or transmission. So at best, it was a medical treatment, and per the law, medical treatments cannot be mandated. When we win, this will be a major victory, not just for LAUSD employees, but for the bodily autonomy of every single American. It will set a monumental legal precedent, and our case will be referred to in future textbooks. Health Freedom Defense Fund is an incredible organization with the most brilliant legal team that we have been blessed to partner with in this fight. HFDF's mission rests on the foundational principle that bodily autonomy is the most sacred and precious of human rights and must be fervently guarded. I encourage everyone to check out their website, healthfreedomdefense.org, to see all the work they've been doing around the country. Thank you to everyone who has generously donated or will donate to our case. We've raised a lot of money for our legal fees, but we still need to raise a lot more, especially since it looks like our case will end up in the Supreme Court. The president and founder of Health Freedom Defense Fund, Lesley Manookian, has flown in from out of town to speak to us today. It is with great pleasure and honor to introduce you to this compassionate, intelligent, and highly accomplished warrior for humanity, Lesley Manookian.
I'm going to have to stop coming to these because every time I do, Vanessa makes me cry. We all know, everyone in this room knows that we are literally facing the fight of our lives. Because if we don't have the right to decide what we put into and onto our bodies from a medical standpoint, then what rights do we have? I care not if I have freedom of speech if I can't control my body. It's meaningless. I'm a slave. I'm nothing more than a cow or a pig that someone can vaccinate or brand or whatever. And that's why we do what we do, because that is the most sacred right that we can possibly have. And I believe that that is something that our Creator gives each and every one of us by birth. Just last Wednesday, I actually presented a bill that an Idaho state senator sponsored for me, and it's called the Idaho Medical Freedom Act, and it would prohibit almost all medical mandates in the state of Idaho. I addressed the legislature, the Committee on State Affairs in the Senate, and explained to them that it's really preposterous that I even had to be there talking to them about this. Like, how far have we veered from our fundamental principles? How far have we gotten to a place where we don't recognize or acknowledge that what we inject into our bodies or are forced to put on our bodies that alter our biological functioning, like masks, are an intrusion and are forced medicine or coercion, that this cannot be allowed in a fair and just and free society. It's just shocking that we are even here today, but we are. And I actually believe that it is darkest before the dawn, and that this is all happening because we are going to be able to reassert our God-given rights once and for all. So I want to talk a little bit about the work of Health Freedom Defense Fund, and then specifically about the case. A couple of months ago, Health Freedom Defense Fund sued the government again, the federal government, something we've done now, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 times. Because you know why? Because the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services is still requiring green card applicants to get the COVID shot. They are. And here's the thing. CDC is only authorized by Congress to put shots on the schedule that are known to address a vaccine-preventable disease. Is COVID vaccine preventable? So how can they put it on the list? They can't. They know it's illegal. We know it's illegal. They've just been doing it until somebody sued them. So HFDF did. We have been contacted by numerous individuals. I don't know how many dozens of individuals, and those are just the ones who know about the case, who are the lead named plaintiff, Benjamin Collins, and his wife, Bing Yu. They live in Japan. She's of Chinese descent. They've been married for years, and they want to come home. And they can't because she doesn't want to get the COVID shot. And that's the only reason they keep denying her green card. That's it. There's another family that we have. The father, he's from New Zealand. He is stuck in New Zealand while his children and wife have come home to the United States. His kids cry every day for their dad, who is literally separated from his family for literally the stupidity of, the stupid requirement that he's supposed to get this shot. That's the only reason. Talk about arbitrary and capricious. There are 60 million tourists that come to America every year. And how many people have gotten the COVID shot in the last year or so? About 20% of Americans, which means 80% haven't. And that 80% are unvaccinated and therefore unprotected from COVID, if it ever protected them in the first place. We all know it didn't. The point is, nobody's vaccinated, basically, and yet these families are being separated. And the whole reason that this persists is because the government just thinks, you know what, we'll just do what we want because the onus is on them to actually file a lawsuit, raise the funds, find the attorneys and everything that they need, and it's not going to happen. And the average attorney isn't skilled going into federal court, so you need people who know how to go up against the Department of Justice. So that's what we do. So this case is really important because it is going to definitively prove that the COVID shots do not stop transmission or infection. We want the judge to rule on that, number one. And number two, we want the judge to actually affirm what we all know to be true because it's written in the Federal Code of Regulations, which is that CDC cannot add shots to the schedule for anything that's not a vaccine-preventable disease. This will open the door for us, everyone, because you know why? Other vaccines don't actually stop transmission or spread. So we're being very, very strategic about taking on the COVID shot to open the door to the rest of the program. So that's one angle to try and undermine the credibility, the authority, and everything surrounding the whole vaccine program in this country. Now let's talk about this case. So last week we got some disconcerting news. Wednesday afternoon, I think I was in an interview or something, and I see a text come in from our attorney saying that the en banc review had been granted. Now let me explain what this means and why we actually think it's an opportunity. So last time I was here was in June of last year, and it was literally a week or maybe 10 days, 8-9 days after we had heard that we had won our appeal, which was one of the greatest days of my life for sure. This was just literally last Wednesday, so what is that, 3-4 days ago. I want to just backtrack and then explain what's going on with this. And what we didn't actually, while we won the appeal, where we fell short in terms of the actual opinion that was released and what we really want to see the court do. So remember that the first case, am I too close to this mic? Is there a weird echo or is it okay? So remember the very first case we filed, I think it was March 18th or 19th, somewhere around there, March 20th of 2021, when the school district started sending out messages to all of you guys that they were going to mandate the emergency use authorized COVID shot for all employees. And a bunch of people reached out to me, Vanessa, and we started talking about challenging it, because it was very clear to us that the government, under the PrEP Act and in the Federal Code of Regulations, it's very explicit that no emergency use authorized product may be mandated. That's just the way the law is written. Now, the Department of Justice tried to twist that, literally, mental gymnastics, tried to twist that to mean that you had to be apprised of the risks of not taking the shot. Not that it was a health issue, but that it could potentially mean losing your job. Literally, this, talk about making stuff out of thin air, but this is what they did. The Department of Justice issued, I think it was from the Office of Legal Counsel, they issued an opinion saying that they could actually, that you had to just be apprised of what the risks to your job and your livelihood were, not the health impacts of it, which is just a total distortion of the law, but that's what happened. So we filed, the school district the day after we filed said, you know, you can test, wasn't really it was more of a recommendation. They backtracked. And then in July of 2021, as our case worked its way through the courts, they told the court that they did not ever intend to mandate the shot, that they weren't working on a mandate or anything like that. And so you know what? The court dismissed the case and said, you know, they're not mandating it, all's good, no harm, no foul, you know, let's all go on our merry ways. 17 days later, the school district implemented their actual mandate, claiming that the shot was now no longer EUA. We all should know that the shot is still only EUA. It's not properly licensed. We sued again, and the case was again dismissed by the same judge down here, Judge Dale Fisher. And she said that she was dismissing the case because of Jacobson. Jacobson is the lawsuit from 1905 that went to the Supreme Court, and upon which every vaccine has been mandated essentially in this country for the last 120 years. But Jacobson doesn't say that the state can just mandate any shot it wants. In fact, Jacobson said that the state could only mandate something, and it wasn't the whole state, it was one little region, not nationally, not an entire school district, not a whole state, nothing like that, in extremely narrow circumstances like a smallpox outbreak, with a shot that was known to be safe and effective. Now, I don't believe that the smallpox vaccine in 1905 was safe or effective, but let's leave that aside for the moment, okay? The truth is, it wasn't, but I'm gonna leave that aside. The judges were very clear from the Supreme Court that this authority in Jacobson should not be construed to grant broad authority to any kind of state actor, that it had to be extremely serious, a true emergency, and that it had to be narrowly applied. But it's now been used nationwide. It's been used for all these mandates, especially in the last 5 years. In fact, it's been used by Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz to say that the state can take you to the doctor and plunge a needle into your arm. How's that for freedom in America? Crazy, absolutely. And he went to Harvard or teaches there. Shows you what's happening. So this is clearly sheer lunacy. So what we argued in our case was that the shots don't stop transmission or infection, and therefore must be treated as a private medical therapeutic, a private decision, that natural immunity is real, that the Jacobson, this lawsuit from 1905, does not apply. In fact, there's a bucket of, which I will go through in a second, of more recent Supreme Court jurisprudence that states very, very clearly that we all have a liberty interest in refusing unwanted medical interventions, and that is a tried, cherished fundamental of American constitutional order. The case, so we argued natural immunity, that it doesn't stop transmission or infection, that Jacobson doesn't apply, and very importantly, that Jacobson must be reconciled with more recent jurisprudence. Now here's what's really important. So we won the appeal in June of last year, And the judges wrote that we have a liberty interest in refusing unwanted medical intervention. They also ruled that Jacobson had been misapplied, but they didn't talk about something called substantive due process. So the 14th Amendment, everybody should know, the 14th Amendment was passed after the Civil War in order to ensure that all Black Americans had all the rights of everybody else in the country. And in there, there's a clause that says that no one will be, that everyone has equal protection under the law and that they have the right to due process, meaning that whenever there's any kind of attempt by government to infringe their rights, they can appeal to a court and be granted due process. And there are a variety of types of due process, but I'm only going to talk about substantive due process, because substantive due process is what we're arguing. We're arguing that the only way that the government can force you to essentially surrender your liberty is if they have an extreme emergency and an extreme situation that warrants it. I would argue that there is no situation that warrants forcing us to put anything into our bodies. But the big thing is that when substantive due process is in question, then the government is required to overcome something called strict scrutiny. Strict scrutiny is a much higher level or a higher threshold for them to be able to prove that they have any reason to do what they want to do. For just equal protection, it's only something called rational basis, which means does the government have a rational reason to do something? So clearly, if the government, the school district, a state, an entity, an arm of the government, wants to force you to take an experimental deadly shot, it better have a darn good reason for doing so. And clearly they don't. Because number one, the shots don't stop transmission or infection. Number two, natural immunity is real. And number three, and most importantly, all the more recent lawsuits in the last 50 or 60 years come down on our side. They come down on the side of liberty. They come down on the side of bodily autonomy. And they are perfectly clear that the government cannot intrude into your body ever, even for good reasons. So this is a case from 1952, actually. It's called Roshan versus California. And this case is truly extraordinary. It involved someone who was arrested, and they swallowed the evidence to keep the police from getting the evidence. And you know what the court ruled? That the government can't pump your stomach because it's a violation, an unreasonable and an inappropriate violation of your liberty to pump your stomach in order to get to that. Well, if they can't pump your stomach, how can they force you to risk your life? How can they force you to put something into your body that has the potential of altering your genes? How is it that they can expose you to myocarditis and to rheumatoid arthritis and seizures and potential sterility and all of the other things, blood clots and all these things that we know happen as a result of those shots? The simple truth is they can't, and no reasonable judge would argue that they can. Griswold versus Connecticut was in 1965. In this case, the Supreme Court ruled that we all have a zone of privacy around us and that the state can't intrude into that. And then in the 1990s, we had a whole slew of other cases. There was Cruzon versus Director, which says that you have the right to refuse unwanted medical treatment, even if it might save your life. In Washington versus Harper in 1990 as well, the Supreme Court said that prisoners, people literally in prison, have the right to refuse psychiatric medications, unwanted medical interventions, that they cannot be forced unless they pose a threat to themselves or those around them. It is eminently clear that the tide has shifted in this country. We are moving in the right direction. So what happened last week was we got this message, an order from the court saying that en banc review had been approved or granted. So let me just go back so everybody understands. We had oral argument in September of 2023, arguing that that the decision of the district court should be overturned because it was wrong, and that was granted in, I think it was June 7th of last year. Then in late June, the school district petitioned the court for an en banc review. So what happens is when you go to district court, you get one judge, and the case is heard by this one judge. And both cases were heard by the same judge, who dismissed both. So we appealed because we thought that that case, the second one in particular, was dead wrong. We drew 3 judges. It's random. You don't know who the judges are going to be that you're going to draw. And those judges issued their ruling last June 7th, June 7th of 2024. Then the school district, over the next couple of weeks, submitted what's called a petition to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, asking for a review of the ruling from the 3-judge panel. Now, our judges in that in the appeal, they said that the case was not moot because the school district had twice tried to manipulate the jurisdiction of the court by rescinding and then re-implementing and then reinstating and then re-implementing the mandate in order to evade judicial review. And they also said that Jacobson had been misapplied, but they didn't rule on the most important piece, which is substantive due process. This is the opportunity. So basically what happened was we heard last week that the school district's petition from last June or July requesting an en banc review meaning that a bigger panel of judges review the decision. That is going to go forward. That appeal or that petition was granted. Now, of course, I wish it would that didn't happen. I wish that we were going to be going to district court in order to prove our case, in order to call in our experts and prove to the court that these shots don't stop transmission or infection, that everybody knows that natural immunity is real, and all of the points that we've made. That would clearly be the best in some ways. But the thing is, we haven't gotten the really, really clear ruling that we need and want, that Jacobson needs to be put to bed forever. That it stems from an era in which we couldn't vote, women couldn't vote, in which the Supreme Court thought it was okay to sterilize women who they deemed to be too unintelligent to have children, and in an era that none of us want to go back to. And all of this more recent jurisprudence is much more, one, current with our culture today, clearly consistent with all of the foundational principles and the most basic of human rights that we all hold dear, and it needs to be changed. So we need the courts to uphold that all the more recent jurisprudence is actually what should be in place today. That is something that we can argue in front of the Ninth Circuit en banc. So basically what's going to happen is the week of March 17th, excuse me, the week of March 17th in San Francisco, I don't know the day yet, a panel of 13 judges of the Ninth Circuit are going to rehear oral argument in our case. So this is going to be very, very exciting. We don't have to submit any more briefs or anything like that. What's just going to happen is our attorneys will go and they will participate in oral argument and basically have the same kind of thing that happened in September of 2023. So there will be oral argument, but instead of in front of 3 judges, it's going to be in front of 13 judges. And we will be able to actually argue that the original panel missed the most important piece, which is that substantive due process must be granted to each and every one of us, each and every one of you, I should say, and that Jacobson needs to be rectified with the more recent jurisprudence. So, like I said, I wish that it weren't happening because I think it would be easier just to go and prove to the court. And the thing is, it's very different when you've got 13 judges who are peppering you with questions rather than going to a jury, which would have been ideal. But we now get to really argue this substantive due process portion of our case, the Jacobson portion, and hopefully we will win. If we don't win, as Vanessa said, we're off to the Supreme Court. And the thing is, the reason that is so important is because the Ninth Circuit, if the Ninth Circuit upholds the decision that we had from the 3-judge panel, it will become the law in the entire Ninth Circuit. If it goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says you have the right to substantive due process, and Jacobson doesn't apply, it will be binding law on the entire country. That is what we want. So there's a part of me that's downhearted, and there's a part of me that is extremely encouraged. When I talked to Scott Street, our attorney, he said, you know, listen, our outcome was great from the original win on the appeal, but we didn't get the clarification that we really want in the law. And those judges are in a pickle, because if they find against us, how can they then tell people your body, your choice for other things? So we are super excited. I really, truly believe that God is with us and that we are in the process of making history. That's the only reason that I know Sonny and Vanessa and all of you stood up, because you know in your hearts what is right. And what is right is that you and you alone make your own health decisions. You and you alone have to live with the ramifications of your health choices. No bureaucrat, no school director, no school board, no superintendent, I don't care who they are, get to tell you how to live your life, how to keep yourself well, or what medical interventions you should undergo. And the fact that they have pretended or somehow assumed that they have that power and authority has to be stopped, and it's going to stop now. So I just want to say, you know, it is my unbelievable honor and pleasure to be with all of you, to stand with all of you, and to fight this fight. We are going to win. We are going to do anything and everything in our power to win. And we have truth, we have decency, we have human rights, and we have God on our side, and we are going to prevail. So on Wednesday morning, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will hopefully be confirmed by the entire United States Senate. He has given so much to fight for this. He has opened himself up to learning, changing his entrenched viewpoints, and now sacrificing himself. He's been doing that for years. He has been given so much grief, so much flack. It's incredible what that man has gone through. His own siblings and family members, cousins, attack him. So last week, I think it was last week, maybe it was the week before, the Finance Committee voted 14-13, the Senate Finance Committee, to send his nomination to the floor of the Senate. And that's going to happen on Wednesday. There have been some criticisms of Bobby in the last week or so, saying that he has made pledges that he shouldn't have, that he has compromised too much. But I can't think of anything more terrifying for a mainstream doctor like Senator Bill Cassidy than to be locked in a room with Bobby Kennedy, to be educated about the truth about vaccines. Now, Bobby is fully aware of our case. You know, it is recognized nationally as being one of the most important cases, if not perhaps the most important case, with respect to Jacobson and substantive due process. And I know that those people in his camp and other health freedom leaders are really pulling for us. This case has the potential to really seriously change history, as I've said from the very beginning. And that is why we do what we do, and why I still, despite the fact that we lost this little, we have a speed bump here, that we are going to still prevail. And I can't see how it could possibly be negative for us to have the president that we have, to have Bobby as head of HHS, and have the other nominees who've been put forward for agencies such as at NIH with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who happens to be one of the experts in our case, or Dr. Marty McCary, who has been put forward for FDA, or Dr. Bill Weldon, who is a former congressman as well, and who has been nominated to head up the CDC. So, our case is extremely important. We have support across the entire country. I hope anybody and everybody who has the means can. If you can give $10, please give $10. If you can give $1,000 or $10,000, then please do that. This thing has already cost a ton of money, as you can imagine, and we just keep fundraising so that we can keep going. Yeah, it's $500,000 we've spent on the case. And yes, we're a 501c3. Yeah, every donation is tax deductible. All of you guys have raised almost $200,000. The rest of it, Health Freedom Defense Fund has put up. And that excludes the first case. The first case was another 150-ish, I think, or something like that, that we paid for as well. So I really ask you to spread the word, talk to anybody and everybody that you can about the importance of this, because this isn't just about this case. This is about every single one of us and our God-given rights. That's what it's about. It's not about school teachers or electricians at LUSD. It is about the most important human right that any of us can possess, and that is the ability to direct our own lives. Thank you.
Thank you. I just really wanted her to add that, because if RFK knows about our case, which means Trump knows about it through RFK, it's the most important case in the country, you guys, for bodily autonomy. If we don't win this, they can make us do whatever. So please, please be generous. Dave, can you put up the donation thing again? Please be generous. Please share this out regularly. We need several $1,000s more for our case, which is going to be for all Americans. Please buy the raffle tickets out in the foyer. Please, please be generous. If you know big donors, tell them about it. It's extremely important. So teachers, many of whom lost their jobs, and the rest don't make a ton of money, are the ones that raised that $200,000. So if we can sacrifice, please, please help us. So thank you so much, Lesley. I just love you so much. And that was just amazing. I'm so grateful for all of these speakers, most of whom have become friends. And wow, just so amazing. So we just have a couple more. So just hang in there. We have some really good things, and we'll be doing the raffle at the end. Next, I want to introduce Tamara Engwall with Destiny 508, and she's going to tell you all about it. Thank you.
Thank you. This is an amazing room to be in. I have learned so much today about what's happening. I only get to read the news, alternative news nonetheless, but you guys are amazing. And when I was praying about today, I don't know, slides up? Nope, not yet. Can you put the first slide up though, just so, because in praying about my speech today, because I'm outside of topic, I'll just warn you right out in front, I am outside of topic for you, what you've all been listening to. But when I'm praying about today, the thing that God told me to do is, this is a season of possibilities. And I went, okay, that's great. Tell me more. So he gave me 3 words. He gave me freedom, protection, and empowerment. And after listening to everybody today, I'm like, that's exactly what this is. You step into the current administration and all the changes that are potentially coming and everything that you guys are working for, this is a season of possibilities. And maybe God, at the moment, I'm at the core towards the end, I am just going to cast out to you that have a mindset, a heart set, a prayer direction to pray into the possibilities, to press into the possibilities, because we could get so stuck in this is what's going wrong, that we don't say, hey, this is amazing, we have an opportunity for something great to happen here, if we flip the coin. So we're going to flip coins for a moment. Next slide. The verse that God gave me is that with him, everything's possible. You step into Christ, those of you who know him personally, I encourage you, and I just can't even stand up here enough. I'm out there, she's talking, so many people have talked today, and I'm like, we got to get a prayer movement going on this stuff. This is amazing. We've got to have these people covered, because I'll tell you, we have an enemy that's not just in the government. We have a heavenly enemy who is against everything being exposed or going away, okay? And I'm just absolutely blown away by how the timelines of what we're discovering with vaccines and what's happened to the schools and all these things are in alignment with the timeline of what I'm about to share with you. So we're going to tell a little bit of a God story. Todd and I, my amazing husband, sitting there, we are one of those miracle people that most people look at us and go, they did it wrong, number one. We met in 2013, and 7 weeks later, we were married. And it has been amazing ever since. So God put us on this journey. Yes, thank you, Jesus. Because we have a ministry called Divine Alliance International, because we are a divine alliance. God put us together to expand his kingdom. We adore each other, but it's still a divine alliance for a purpose, okay? So our Divine Alliance ministry actually does education outreach and medical outreach in Kenya. But when we got married, 6 months later, God said, you're starting a ministry. And we're like, what? I'm working for the government at the time. Todd is doing something for building the electric grid throughout our country. But they said, start a ministry. And we're like, okay, whatever. And he gives us this 5-acre piece of property. And in 3 months, we had it completely renovated in order to do ministry. But I had been in the 501c3 world off and on for 30 years, and I had no desire to go back into that bondage. To me, it was just so challenging to do all the paperwork and blah, blah, blah. Those of you who are 501s, you understand that. It's a lot of work. Can be. We had someone come to our ministry center, though, and he said, you guys need to be a 508. And we're like, what is a 508? We're like, okay, tell us more. So we did this research, and it's a 508c1a. Has anybody ever heard of that? Anybody in the room ever heard of a 508c1a? Thankfully, the lawyers have. That's good news. I love that. But a 508c1a, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history about that. But that 2 weeks later, we started this ministry under that covering. And a 508c1a, I'm going to explain what that is. But it gives us back exactly the three things. It gives you freedom, it gives you protection, and it empowers you to be able to go out and do what God says to do without government oversight. It's an amazing place to be. So we're stepping into that because there's people in this room. You want to flip just a moment? There's people in this room who are actually our clients. We've helped them get their 508s. They are thriving doing what they are doing in the education realm and in the medical realm under the covering of this designation of a 508. So who are we? We get to be we help faith-driven world changers accomplish their calling. How many of you in this room would call yourself a world changer? Everybody should. You all have a place in here. Awesome. We help people like you complete your calling. How do we do that? Go ahead, next slide. Up to this point in time, oh, it slid up. That's amazing. Up to this point in time in the last 4.5 years, in 2020, I'm going to tell you a story. Because in 2020, June of 2020, we had been a nonprofit ourselves for, 6 years at that point in time? Something like that. And we had helped lots of other people find the 508, okay? We want everybody else to step into religious freedom, to step in freedom of speech. And at that point in time, in that June of 2020, we're driving down the road having just helped somebody get their 508 started. And we hear the Lord say, we're praying about it, we're going, I feel something different, what's happening? We're like, God, what's up? And we hear him say, it was almost audible. We heard him say, go help 1,000 of these get started. And we're like, 1,000? We've helped like 20. And 5 years, 1,000 of them. And so for 3 months, I prayed, I cried, I wept, I begged, whatever, because I wanted to know why it was so important to God's heart. Why? It's just an IRS designation, okay? Why is it so important? And he gave me this vision where he took me up in this picture. I felt myself go up above America, and out of Washington, D.C., I saw this mountain grow. And out of that mountain, a giant foot came out and started stomping all over the country. And I said, God, what's going on? And he says, that's what my 501 churches are inviting the government to do. Then I saw individuals walk up to the mountain and put 1 foot on it. And I said, who are they? He says, those are my 508 churches. So if you think of it from God's perspective, which is what I felt like he gave me, this is his perspective, that if you step into the proper designation as a church, that the government is even given to us. I'm not telling you something that isn't legit, okay? The government's given this to us. We actually have influence over that government mountain. That's how powerful it can be. So we've helped over 600 of people launch into be world changers, start their ministries. We have a fair amount of them who they come in and they have a passion. They're driven to do something good in the world. We have a fair amount of them attacking the education quadrant of what they want to do. We have a fair amount going over into the medical and doing what they want to do. And it all started for them with getting the freedom that a 508 does. Those people have helped hundreds of thousands of people. We get the joy and pleasure of watching the ripple effect. Some of the people we've helped have over 1 million followers on YouTube. They get to have an impact, and partly because they got released into something that empowered them, equipped them, and gave them the freedom they needed to go do what God has told them to do. Next one. Long story, sorry. And I've only got 2 minutes left. Are we sure about that? Okay, so let's go ahead and flip to the next one. So what is a 508C1A? A 508C1A is the designation that our government has given to us for a church, a religious organization, a faith-based organization. And guess what, folks? You become a church, and you can go and do any good in the world you want to do under that covering. That's why we have people doing lots of schools, lots of medical, lots of other types of outreach. You get to be what God created you to be under this covering, okay? And it's not that difficult. It is a mandatory exception to the 501c3 for religious organizations. And there's no government oversight, there's non-reporting, no 990 forms, no 1023. You are covered by virtue of starting a church. So the next couple of slides, I'm just gonna pop them up real quick, and I'm going to encourage you, this gives you an outline detail of between a 501, a 508, but you can go to our website, just kind of flip through them, but you can go to our website and you can find all of this in a free document. Pull out your phones, destiny508.com, and one of the first things you're going to see is download our Ministry Freedom book. Okay? And we will be at the table over here. You can ask us more questions about that. But the 501 and the 508 churches are not meant to be 501s. During COVID, 501s got shut down. 508s didn't close. Powerful. Okay. So it has been a joy. There's a lot we could go over, but can you flip through to one of the last slides? Next one. Next one. Right there. So if you go to our website, you can find these things. There's a free download of an ebook. There is a book I've written. You can go ahead and buy that on Amazon for $10. But we also have courses. We not only help you get your 508 started by being a registered agent, we have tons of education so that you're successful at what you do. So hopefully, and one last thing I want to say, and I know I got 2 seconds, but one last thing I want to say is that the Johnson Amendment came into pass in 1956, and that's when all this kind of started happening with the schools. I just thought that was the marriage there was incredible. The Johnson Amendment said all churches had to be 501s. In 1969, they gave us our freedom back. Churches never had to be a 501 again, but 90% of the churches in the country are. So thank you for letting me be here. Thank you for inviting me. This has been amazing. I can hardly wait to see what happens next.
So next, I would like to welcome Daniella Bloom. Let me take this out. And she's going to talk about how to recall Newsom. How many of you agree? And some other things. But just she's going to be real quick.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to be very quick. 3 times the charm. My name is Daniella Bloom. I'm the National Ambassador of Jexit, Jews who have exited the Democrat Party. Yes, yes, yes. Give yourselves a hand, by the way. You guys were all still in California. We're the fighters, right? Give yourselves a hand. If you've signed a petition, if you've went to a protest, if you've went to a rally, everyone give yourselves a hand. You're here. We are the mama bears and papa bears of America. We are truly the fighters. We are behind enemy lines. And one of the reasons I woke up, I was with Jennifer Kennedy and many of you when they closed the schools. When you mess with my children, when you mess with our inherent freedoms, and you mess with Israel, now you have my attention. Woo! So I don't have a lot of time, but we are collecting signatures. The new Newsom recall is savingcalifornia.vote. No matter what, we keep this trending. We keep this in the news. We keep talking about California incompetency. So goes California, so goes the nation. So we get to keep talking about this. Between Newsom and Bass, we have a lot of content. So please, before you go, find me. Let me sign it for you. Also, I speak. I have a best-selling book. All the donations from my book for children, which is #1 on Amazon, The World Where I Belong, I'm selling it. The proceeds will be going here. So let's keep supporting each other, and thank you guys so much for coming out. God bless.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. You guys, so thank you so much. We have just a panel really quick, and then we're doing the raffle. So I would like to introduce Meri Crowley. Sarah Stevens, Make California Gold Again. She ran against Newsom in the 2021 recall. Sonja Shaw, the school board president for Chino Hills, and Rebecca Friedrichs for Kids and Country. And they're going to be talking about our children's identity and some of the great things that Trump and his cabinet have been doing for our children. Thank you. And you guys can have a seat.
So anyway, I wanted to say before, this is going to be short, just like 15 or 20 minutes. But wasn't it great today? Wasn't it awesome, all the speakers? And Heather, didn't she do a great job? We love Heather. She's amazing. And make sure that you go and contribute. Put that slide up again about where they can donate online, because there's many people that are watching online. But let me tell you, as I was sitting there getting ready to come up, and we've got some few questions that we're going to talk about the LGBT ideology, the CRT, and the DEI, and a number of these agendas that have been literally promoted at the public school systems. The Lord reminded me that there's been many prophetic words that Lonnie Frisbee, in fact, he's the movie that I'm working on called The Prodigal. I'm in the Media Mountain and Arts and Entertainment in LA. And what the enemy tried to do here in Los Angeles and burning this place down, God's going to bring his fires of revival. And what was said, Lonnie said that what the hippie was in the Jesus movement in the 60s, God was going to use the LGBT as one of the people groups that he's going to redeem and restore, that they're going to love God, be true. So we're going to start on that note that what it looks like, how bad it's been, it says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. So we're going to be talking to these great people up here, because they're on the forefront of the fight, as I am too, of what's happening with our children. And so anyway, I wanted to end on that note, like at least for my part, because I'm also in the ministry. So anyway, and Lord, we thank you, God, that what the enemy is meant for evil, that you're turning it around, and that, Lord, that these people that the enemy has tried to bring gender dysphoria, that we're going to see the greatest move of God the world has ever seen, and I believe Los Angeles is going to be at the epicenter of that move. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay, so I guess I'm going to sit down too. Anyway, So anyway, you know, this whole LGBT ideology, Rebecca, we'll start with you. How are they implementing this? How are they implementing in the public school systems?
In so many ways, it's hard to keep track. So it's done through after-school clubs that are funded, by the way, by the teachers' unions. It's done through forcing curricula onto districts, forcing particular, you know, here in California, we had the California Healthy Youth Act. Nothing healthy about it. It's pornography. That opened the door to all kinds of, you know, at the time, you can pick from these 6 curricula. All 6 were equally pornographic, but all schools receiving funding from the state were forced to use them. It's happening by literally kicking good, honest teachers out of the classroom for a week or a month while Planned Parenthood comes in and does the indoctrinating. Planned Parenthood has contracts with districts all over the country. And it's very hard for us to find out if they have a contract, because you go ask the superintendent, oh no, we don't have a contract. You have to file a FOIA request and find out if they have a contract. So I don't want to, there's so many ways, so I'm going to pass it on to Sonja and let her share some more. I don't want to hog the whole thing.
Oh no, absolutely. Definitely clubs are a huge thing. Clubs during lunch, after school clubs. The curriculum, as you know, us in Chino Valley and Temecula and just a handful of other school boards that are trying to do the right thing. You do something that's right, and then the state comes back because they have the supermajority and they make a law and they implement and force it upon districts like ours to try to push it into the classroom. With that said, again, even with the books in the libraries, it is nasty what's in your guys' libraries. And God forbid a teacher tries to raise the flag and say this is happening, or one of us, you have, you know, the radical mob after you, but then again, they're after our kids. So it's coming through legislation. It's coming through the classroom. You have teachers, if you're not watching, that are pushing this, but you have great teachers too that are just screaming for help. They don't want to teach this, but they're being required. And community schools, guys, look out for that. It's a huge thing right now. When the COVID money has ran out, like this is our last year, you'll see all these districts all around California start to lay off a huge amount of employees, right? Well, when that happens, now they want you to take, you know, the little carrot that's waved up against them, and it's the community school grants. With that, you're partnering with things like Planned Parenthood and all these other things that come into your schools because you're taking the money, and these schools so desperately need the money because it's mismanaged, right? And especially from the state. So again, they're tying the school districts in to the money that requires them to be partners with these organizations that are pushing horrible, disgusting things on our children.
Well, and Sarah Stevens, you know, you ran for governor, make California gold again, and you have, I think, 6 children?
Yes.
In fact, her last baby is named America.
That you prayed over.
I prayed over America, and the most beautiful baby that I've ever seen. But anyway, how do you see that this is affecting the children? Because you know, work all around the state. How do you think these policies are implementing children?
Well, honestly,
affecting.
Yeah, what is so sad about it is that you see these young, beautiful children, literally they're teaching them at the kindergarten level that there's all these different genders. And for me, the most heartbreaking thing was, this is actually a couple years ago, my husband and I were volunteering, we still do, at a public school, and we do a little Christian Bible club. And after the Bible club that day, we took the kids out to eat, and we saw some little kids just sitting by themselves. Their parents were like, you know, getting drinks. And it was like a little boy and a little girl. And they were looking at each other and they said, who are you gonna marry when you grow up? A boy or a girl? And so, like, literally you have young children thinking, boys think it's okay to marry a boy. You have little girls thinking it's okay to marry a girl. And the amount of perversion and confusion that is entered into these beautiful, innocent babies' lives is heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. And we even currently, I have all my kids help us with the Bible club that we do at the school, and I can even see the enemy just coming in because we're taking a stand and we have all these children that come with us. And I've even had some of the other after-school program teachers, they see what we're doing, and they'll come up to the kids individually and say, are you sure you want to go to the Good News Club? Why don't you just hang out with us instead? And so really we're in a spiritual war right now. And that's my number one thing to enlist everyone in is please join with us in prayer for the children of the next generation. Elementary school, middle school, and high school, this is a spiritual war. We need to get the evil out of the schools, and we need to reach this next generation through prayer and the gospel.
Amen. Amen. Well, let me ask Sonja, in regards to, boys playing in women's sports with Title IX. President Trump came out, and of course, he reversed a number of those things that they'd implemented, but they haven't in California. Explain what's happening with Title IX in California.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I have had a flood of messages recently when it comes to Title IX. That's a huge thing. We know even with close even to here in Riverside, it's a thing that's happening. These boys are taking spots on the girls' sports teams. There is boys in districts all across California that, identify as a girl, and they're allowed to be in those locker rooms, and parents still do not know that, and they're not having the conversations with their children to see if that is even happening. So here's the thing. My phone started flooding a couple days ago when Trump did that. It is historic. It's beautiful, brought tears to see all those beautiful girls around the little young athletes around him. That is amazing. I remember as a mother a few years back begging our school board before I became a school board member to oppose Biden's Title IX changes, right? So when I got in, we put a resolution, we supported Trump's, we actually opposed Biden's thing and supported Trump's thing. Our district supports that, but with that said, California, our girls are not safe. They are not safe until they find a way to come down by us getting loud, right, to Trump and his admin and the federal government to pull the funding. Until they pull the funding, California will not comply. You already had Bontum. We should just call them all that, right? You have Bonta, Newsom, and Thurman. I call them the political cartel of California, along with all of their little cronies. They already came down, doubled down, got on the news, did their little press conferences, and said they will not comply. So with that said, we still have a great fight to fight for our girls. Yesterday, we were down at CIF. CIF doubled down. I will say, I want to believe in my heart the majority of the commissioners do not agree with this, but guess what CIF reports to? The California Department of Ed. Guess who leads the Department of Ed? Tony Thurman. Guess what he's doing? He's holding them to making toolkits on how to show the boys how to safely play on the girls' sports. They're doubling, tripling down. You guys need to understand they're still allowed in the locker rooms. They're still allowed on the sports teams in your guys' school districts. And until we get loud about it and ask them and beg them to pull the funding, we're going to continue to fight the good fight for our girls, but it is still very much here in California.
Thanks, Sonja. So, Rebecca, what can we, the people, do? Because I know there's laws that are passed that now, the children don't have to tell their parents, the teachers don't have to tell if they want to, whatever they transition. So what can we, the people, do? What can the parents here do that we can make a change?
Well, there's a lot we can do, and the first thing is we have to get back to Jesus Christ. This country, as you know, and this state was built upon Christ. And the reason our country was blessed and the reason our children were safe was because we were built upon Christ. And our nation turned a blind eye and stopped worshiping the Lord. So that's the number one thing. We've got to get back to the Lord, get back to telling people about the Lord. And one of the worst things I've seen through all of this, typical communist tactic, is making Christians afraid to talk about their faith. Don't be afraid. We have to speak the truth and speak it all the time. Don't be obnoxious, but speak the truth. People need it. People need the Lord. So that's number one, and the power of prayer, of course. And then we just have to realize that this is a satanic agenda. The devil is after your kids. The devil's after you. The devil's after this state. Why would we let him have it? So, I mentioned earlier that the one thing that a communist is afraid of is a Christian who lives his faith. Live your faith. Fight. Don't sit on the sidelines. Don't complain. Do something. And if we all jump in and we all fight and we all speak the truth, who in the world would think it's okay to do all these things to children? And so we just need to keep speaking the truth. That's my best advice.
Yeah, go ahead, Sonja.
I'd like to add something because everything she said I ditto, I love you, and it definitely is a spiritual battle, and we need more Christians to rise up. But more importantly, we need to get involved in politics because we have a moral obligation. I'm proof of it. You see the state suing our district left and right and trying to bully us. But I was just a mother a handful of years ago that never got involved in politics. And here I am now a school board president for 3 years already. We brought policies forward. We're trying to make the big change, but with that, we're bringing awareness, right? We're bringing more fighters to the fight. You talked about the, notifying parents and stuff. Guess what, guys? We got sued for that policy, but we could still notify parents. We still had a big win in court, and whether we can have the exact language of the previous policy, that we have an injunction on that, we found a workaround, because if there's a will, there's a way, God will provide it. We still at Chino Valley notify a parent when a child changes their unofficial or official record changes. We just need more of people like that, are going to be bold and courageous, the more mama and papa bears and the grandmas and grandpas to get into these positions. Don't ignore your local elections. Your local elections are really what matters, and that even includes your state assemblies and senates. Don't sit by. Don't use the excuse that your ballot isn't going to be counted or you can't get involved because you're a Christian. Yes, you can, and you hold them accountable when they steal your ballot. You hold them accountable because it personally happened to you, and now you can hold the state accountable and be part of raising the flag, right? Until you actually be part of it, we're going to continue to have a few of us trying to raise the flag. The rest are sitting back like, I don't want to touch it. I don't want death threats. I don't want this. You have a gift. God gave it to you. Now start using it. We need more fighters on the ground to protect our children and families. We cannot use that excuse any longer.
Amen.
Yes, and here being, in Burbank, and of course, this a number of movies and studios, things like that around here, and everybody has a story. It's history. And, I want to hear a little bit about the stories. It's motion pictures, moving stories, living stories. That's why stories are so important. And so, Sarah Stevens, I know you ran for governor. You have 6 children. They got the mic. Why did you decide? I think it's important. I'm sure that you felt fear. I mean, we all have fear. It takes courage to move. But, courage in the face of having fear. When did you decide to run, and what made you step into the game?
Yeah. So for me, it was kind of a no-brainer, because what happened is, see, my husband, he's former law enforcement, former military, and so he was always the one on the front lines fighting for our country, fighting for freedom. And then we were pastors, we still are. And at that point, we had a church at an elementary school. So we were doing that every Sunday, always ministering to people. And then I used to do these big concerts and extreme sports shows honoring veterans, military, and first responders, right? So I'm like always basically doing big events, and then we're always having our church. And then as soon as we got an email saying that they were gonna close all churches in California, and then they were going to close all churches and all schools in California indefinitely. That's when I knew in my spirit that I'm like, this has nothing to do with COVID. This has everything to do with silencing the Christians and taking away our power and our authority. And so I remember my husband stood up that very first Sunday, because can you guys remember when they literally closed everything and you couldn't even go to a restaurant? And so my husband's like, okay, well, we'll do church at our house. We had our neighbors calling the police on us. They're like, dude, they're having church at their house. I'm like, oh, bring it on. So, but that is what got me in the fight, because I'm like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't just take our church. No, they didn't just take, and the whole reason why I was doing my events was because 22 veterans a day commit suicide. And so we made our whole thing about saving the veterans because they fought for our freedom, so we might as well fight for them here. And I'm like, no, they didn't. Now they're gonna cost more people their lives. And so all of a sudden my husband's like, hey, whatever you wanna do. And I'm like, I had started organizing all these rallies. One of the first rallies that we had was in Riverside County. And actually, Sheriff Chad Bianco said, hey, you move your event to my jurisdiction, because Newsom found out about it. And he's like, I promise you, Sarah, we will protect you, and we will make sure it will not be shut down. We had 10,000 people.
Wow.
So,
well, and that's where we have to get into the game. I know we were the first state, California, that shut down. I call him Gavin Newsom shut us down. And I woke up on May 2nd, and I heard God speak to me, and he said, we won't shut up till you open the heavens. And he said, do 7 baptisms along the western seaboard. The first one went Pirates Cove. 50 years prior were the first baptisms. We're at a movement time, and we're at a pointed time. And Rebecca, I want to ask you, we just have about, 3-4 minutes left. People think, okay, great, Trump's in, we've got it made. I believe we're at the beginning of the war. I do believe we're at the beginning of the war. What would you tell to the people, right now of, just to inspire them that we've got to stay in the game and not kind of lay back and think, okay, we've won?
It's such a great question because I know people want to relax. We are just starting the battle. I mean, this is the beginning. We were almost taken out. Okay, had they pulled off another steal, and if Kamala was leading us now, we'd be a communist nation. We'd be praying a lot, we'd have the hope of heaven, but we wouldn't have hope for America. God has given us a second chance. How dare we sit back and take a rest? It's time for us to fight harder than we've ever fought. We have this amazing leader leading all of us, and all these people like, Elon and Tulsi and RFK who are changing, leaving the Democrat Party, thank God, awakening and working with us. So we have a chance of not just our lifetime, of many lifetimes, to really turn this nation back to God, to restore her, and that will impact the entire world. And I just especially want to encourage the men. I want to apologize for the female sex who started it was through the unions, and the same people started National Organization for Women and told men to sit down and shut up. Would you please stand up and speak out, men? We need you.
Yeah.
We need you desperately. We need you to lead. And from Christian women here, we are saying, take it. You're the leaders. We're happy to follow.
Absolutely. Yep, that's absolutely right. And yesterday at the CIF meeting, I told every man in that room, there was 90% of them, you are shameful. You need to start pretty much, I'm in church, but grow a pair and take a bold action. I'm sorry, guys. It's the truth because, look, I love the Lord. I'm very old-fashioned. My father's from the Middle East. You can call it whatever it is. Men need to lead. They need to stand up. I have an amazing husband who I know if I'm in harm's way, he's right there in front of me. But at the end of the day, we need more men leading. We shouldn't have to do this, but we're doing it because of weak men not leading, right? Not leading. And until that's fixed, we're going to still continue to be loud in this and fight, and God's called us. But men, get on your knees and ask Jesus where he wants you, because there is a place that he wants you. Trust me. When I have fathers at a school board meeting, and I've seen some of them actually even in this room, it helps me understand. And when I walk out of that room and I have 50 Antifa people trying to follow me to my car, I'm okay. Because I have 50 God-fearing men protecting me right there on the side of me, right? And I know Jesus is providing that protection. So you guys all have a place, and I definitely agree, but I also want to thank the men who are doing what God's calls, because, and the churches, we're in a church right now that they're allowing this. That is far and few from, in California. I come from a church who we have a bold, amazing pastor, Pastor Jack Hibbs, and we have Chino with Real Impact that's pushing a movement to get morally involved into politics. We need that all across California.
Yes, well, thank you, Sonja and Rebecca, and also Sarah. And let's just stand up. As we close out now, I was in D.C. For the inauguration and some of the galas. President Trump actually called it Liberation Day. It was actually Martin Luther King Day. And, Martin Luther King wasn't the first choice to be the leader of the civil rights. In fact, there was a time that he was actually thinking about how he was going to get out of it at the kitchen table when he got a death threat. And then he heard the voice of the Lord speak to him in prayer. Stand up for liberty and stand up for justice, and I will always be by your side. That's what we're doing here, and we thank you for attending, and we thank you, Heather, for putting this on today, and all of you that are watching. God bless you. Thank you.